pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. And we will move to new certified staff candidate introductions. And Rick, please.
Yes, good evening. I'm happy to bring before you tonight 3 new candidates here for Lake Orion. We'll start with Erin Mina. Erin's in the front row. Erin will be teaching Spanish at the high school. She comes to us having taught in Birmingham Public Schools.
Okay.
We're excited to have her, and she has her daughter with her. Next, we have Christopher Reed. Chris, if you'd stand up. Chris will be teaching middle school ELA at Oakview. Chris has experience. He's coming to us from Armada, and you'll see that he has his family with him as well, his wife, a newborn, and parents. And finally, we have Lisa Abed. Lisa is going to be one of our social workers, and she comes to us having most recently worked in the Southgate School District. We're happy to have her. Social work at Pine Tree Center. That's important.
Okay. Great.
So we welcome the 3 of them.
Welcome.
Yes.
We're glad you're here. And Rick, you want to give the,
Yep, and as I said earlier, you're not obligated to stick around, but it's usually very exciting. And,
well,
well, Mr. Bell's presenting tonight, so.
Right?
that's different.
And so is Missy.
And so is Missy.
Right, so it's missing. Lots of exciting.
No pressure.
Some great topics.
All right.
In other words, have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to the district.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so from one piece of good news to the next. Mark, please.
Hello. Hope you're all doing well. The end of the school year, which, seems like a long time ago now, but it was since our last meeting. It was a flurry of activity. You guys attended many of the things, so we'll share a lot of things that have happened in the last couple weeks, but it was all good news and it was real exciting, so we'll go one at a time. The graduation ceremonies were wonderful. Obviously, the joy of everyone really was nice. We got a lot of feedback from, parents and community members. I mean, I think the weather helped with having the outdoor one too. I think people enjoyed it once the rain was over and everything. People liked the temperature and everything. I think it was, but the way the ceremonies have done and they've developed has been really great. Our administrators really spend a lot of time, putting them together and making them special for the students. And I think that that's something that should be appreciated too by all of us. These things just don't happen. And Ben was there at the rehearsal for the LHS that morning, and everything's down to a science. And you all experienced a 1 hour and 45-minute graduation with 550 kids. So that's pretty impressive. That does not happen everywhere. I was at another one a couple days earlier, and it was not like that. So it's great. It was a great time with the graduations. So. Dragon Virtual Program, the elementary, they wrapped up, those students are home all the time, and they wrapped up with a day together. They did a marketplace, and they were able to exchange all of their different goods, and they had all prepared things at home and then came and then traded and with, the fake money and traded and learned a lot about it and everything. It was great. And then they had a little ceremony for the 5th graders. You can see there, the graduates and moving on. And it was really a great experience. They were so excited to see each other. It was at Friendship Park, and just the interactions, when they've been behind the screens for the whole year, and to connect really was nice. And Amy Bohm, Cammie Giberson spent a lot of time, obviously, putting the whole thing together and trying to make it so the families would feel comfortable coming. And a lot of the families were there and stayed, so that was nice, too. They got to see everything kind of in action, too. So that was nice.
And they got to have sick pizza.
Yes,
Nice.
There you go. Orion Oaks, this was the 25th year of Orion Oaks, and Principal Jillian Knapp had their final community circle was a big event, and they had a big, opportunity to really talk about everything and share some memories. They had a student council group who was there and shared, like, it was funny because they're talking about things that, they do this time capsule thing. They're talking about what happened 25 years ago, and they talk about these things that, we all experienced, like seriously, these Stone Age and everything. So it was fun. And that's Wendy Tate, one of the two teachers who was there at the beginning, along with Lori Van Arsdale, who we saw earlier this year, as the teacher of the year. So she gave a little speech to them and about experience of the building and working with different principals and stuff. So it was really a fun morning. The prom had a record, over 800 students attend out Plaza de Grande. They had a great time. It was a huge event, and everyone was excited. I think they're, as we continue to come out and go back to normalcy, I think there was so many students who signed up that I think the high school was really surprised, but everyone had a great time, so that was a nice evening. Carpenter had a marketplace with their 4th and 5th graders where they exchange things, and the students really get creative with some of these things and trying to what they can sell to their friends, and they're some pulling stuff out of their basement, some of them are planning stuff way in advance, and so that was fun to see all those things. We had a little bit of great media exposure near the end of the year, actually on the last day of the school year. Ben was over at the high school. He saw it, not the high school, Orion Oaks, sorry. The students at Orion Oaks in Mrs. Acton's class, who actually is a parent, Ms. Acton is a teacher at Orion Oaks, but she's a parent in Oxford, and her child had gone through at the high school, gone through some of obviously what happened there, and she wanted to do something. She brought it to her class about, interacting. They made dog houses, and they worked with Andrea Brooke, who's one of our STEM coaches that based at Orion Oaks, and they built and they designed the things and everything. And so, Channel 4 and the Oakland Press came out and they did big pieces on it, and they were able to interact with the students. And it was great for the students to kind of interact with them as well. And then because they had Ben there to talk, Ben was able to share about school safety and great things that we've done, to try to make our district continually more and more secure. I don't know if Ben, you want to just address those opportunity for us to have some.
Yeah, it was a good opportunity. It was right after the governor had signed off on the bill that supplied Oxford with $10 million, I believe it was. And then there was a pot of money also that got divided up amongst the schools. So they really wanted to know, what would a local school district do with that? And then also recognizing that the amount of money wasn't substantial enough to impact everybody. So we talked a little bit about what that would look like in implementation within the school district. So
Yeah, it was great. Next is the Orion Library has a summer reading program, and I know they're great partners, and Heidi and her staff work with them. And even though they have a new director, we still have a great partnership with them. And what they did is they had they called it a book bike. I don't know, that little ice cream cart thing, and they would ride it to each of our 6 elementary schools over that final couple weeks. And the students they told them about signing up, and then they had a big event at the library where they signed up, and then they get in the reading program as well. So that was a great opportunity, which leads into the next one, which is the summer reading programs. A lot of the elementary schools, the media specialists are making time in the summer, selected times, for students to come in and check out books so that there's some connection still to the schools, and they know that they can help them pick out books and everything. And Stadium Drive, I know we've talked about earlier, Dan Dabrowski up there, who's the Stadium Drive media specialist, he does not have a library because of the bond construction and everything. And remember we saw him on the stage where he had to adapt and everything, his classroom for the final couple months of the year. And so he and different staff members from Stadium are using the library now as the place where their students can go. So I know Blanche Sims has done it, and a number of Weber, and they're having opportunities for the students to check out books. So it's nice that even though it's summer, they're getting decent response too, that the kids are coming in because they like that connection to the schools. And I think they're giving their time to do it in the summer, which is really nice. And finally, LOEF golf outing happened yesterday. You can see that 3 of our cabinet members were there doing things that were sort of golf. And it was great. It was great. We had 3 major donors. You can see at the top, the Aquatic Source was one of them. GMB and DM Burr, who are our partners, they made nice contributions as well. And one thing and you can see the township was really supportive, Chris Barnett with his team there and everything. These baskets really were a big hit. I mean, Heidi, if you want to talk about LOEF and kind of the idea of the golf outing and everything.
Yeah, yesterday was a really nice turnout for the golf outing. Each of the schools had donated a basket that we did a silent auction with, so it was really nice, and the baskets were a great hit. And I think, we're waiting to hear yet, but I think this might have been the biggest turnout that we've had. So we're pretty excited. It was a lot of fun. Great weather, very warm, but very nice weather.
Yeah, great participation, which is
Yeah,
really
great
nice. I mean, I know in other years, you know, it's been hard to fill all the foursomes, but yesterday was basically a full event, and everyone showed up and really had a great time, so it was nice. And that's it. Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
So we'll move on to presentation tonight, and as Ben said, we have two tremendous presentations, beginning with Missy, and we're looking forward to this information. We have been for a while.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to reflect on 21-22. We thought this year was going to be kind of normal when we started, and then still a little bit of the pandemic holding on. We still had some quarantines happening, but then we had the tragedy in Oxford, and so some of our data isn't going to maybe look as well as we wanted it to, but I'm going to highlight some of the good news in our story. But I first want to remind everyone that Lake Orion has a comprehensive and balanced assessment system. I usually come here and talk about one assessment, and I'll tell you why in a second. But we assess our kids every single day. So it's comprehensive because we have a multitude of different assessments that we give kids, whether they're formal or informal. It's balanced because we don't give too much of one and not enough of another, and it's a system because they all work together to tell parents, students, administration, the board, everyone involved, are our kids meeting those standards? So I just want to kind of go through all these different assessments we give kids, because it's not just the one that I report out. Daily, it could be a question, it could be an observation. This is what informs our instruction in the second, in the moment, or the very next day. Medium assessments are those quizzes. Those may be over a unit, but those still inform our instruction, and they're giving us that information. Our kids now retaining that information and putting it together. Something a little bit more formal that tells us if kids are on track is our grading, report cards, and so on. What I report out on are longer-term formative assessments called benchmark testing. We take these 3 times a year. And these are the best indicators on whether we are achieving our standards and benchmarks at each grade level. And I'll explain why in a second. The last final summative piece are those state assessments that we take only 1 time a year. And although those are telling us if our kids are meeting benchmarks, that's a 1-time assessment, whereas I report out on ones that are 3 times a year, give us a better indicator. They are also nationally normed. So although our grades and our tests tell us information, those are often teacher-created, and those are based on our curriculum. The benchmark assessments are computer-adapted, nationally normed. They give us the best indicator of where we're at. So we give this assessment to 4,500 kids in our district. We use FastBridge. It's one of the vendors that's pretty popular. We are required to give this to K-8 students. We are not required to give these to high school students. We use it for reading, math, and this year, super excited to have data on social emotional learning. There's computer adaptive assessments, but there's also some one-on-one teacher assessments that we give to K-1 and some of our social emotional assessments. Okay, so I'm gonna get right into the reading. I put the K-8 all together just to kind of give us that overall district view. Gave us the trend all the way back to fall of 1920, and you can see spring of 2021-22, we've actually surpassed where we were. So we've been working really hard on our reading. Now it's going to look different at different grade levels, so this is that overall average. So I broke it up into lower L and upper L, because lower L has some really foundational early literacy skills. And so you see this all over the place because those skills are all over the place for kids at different times. There's one story in particular I want to bring out here. Kindergarten in fall of 2021, when we started remote. Yikes. Very difficult to learn letter sounds and concepts of print when you're in front of a screen and kids, that's the first time they've seen school. So that's why we see that drop. Started coming back, we picked it back up. Then they became first graders this year. We expect a little bit of a summer slide, so we weren't so concerned when we saw this with our first graders. This was not okay. We flatlined in first grade. The reason these assessments are so awesome is because that told us something's going on in first grade. We took all that data apart. We looked at all the separate skills in that composite. We looked at it by building. We looked at it by teacher. I met with individual administrators. Our literacy coaches took that data and ran with it. So because we had this information, our first graders ended up climbing after that because we took action on what the data was telling us. This is upper L, so you can see the difference between those early literacy skills to now once you can read, it's now about comprehension. So our upper elementary students are kind of above that district average. But again, here's a little story. The orange line was 6th grade the prior year. They took a really big dive when they got to 7th grade. Again, that is information that these assessments give us that make us take action to where they are at the end of the year as 7th graders. There's a lot of other stories in there, just highlighting a couple on each one. Okay, this is the one that had the mountain behind it. I didn't put the mountain behind it this time because as you can see, we still climbed a little bit, still made a little inch forward. So this was that class of 2032 that took that big nosedive when they left kindergarten, remote in first grade, and then they came back to this year, and you can see by the spring, we're getting closer and closer, where it's just a little bit harder to make that climb the higher you get. The altitude, it's harder. Okay, math. Math is a little bit more difficult to climb. Math is so super sequential to have those, to master the skills prior to the one you're learning that you may not have gotten when all of this took on. So it's going to take us a little bit longer to climb the math mountain than the reading mountain. So this is again 2 through 8 district-wide average. You're going to see lower L again, all sporadic. The story I picked out of this one is Gray was 3rd grade the prior year. 3rd grade, that is where multiplication and fractions begin. So 3rd grade fell again, but then that green line continued them as 4th graders. So we're beginning to pick up because what's happening is we now have to go back. Once we get a 4th grade standard to teach, we have to make sure they mastered that 3rd grade one first. So that climb isn't as steep as we're trying to fill those gaps each year that goes by. This is upper grades 6 through 8. That orange line, again, 6th grade, drop, drop, drop. That's okay, hang on. 6th grade is all pre-algebra skills now. Back when I was in school, pre-algebra was like high school, right? 6th grade is all of your pre-algebra skills. So they fell the year before, and again, they're starting to climb out as 7th graders. So it was important to connect those cohorts as you see those lines go all over the place in the trends. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about our social emotional data. So as a district, we adopted the CASEL framework to use for our social and emotional learning. And you can see the 5 skills, competencies in the center: self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, social awareness, self-awareness. Those make up those 5 competencies for social emotional learning. Buildings made specific plans based on the data that they received in the fall after taking a survey. So the survey, Sabres is part of our FastBridge package. So this is already in our system. SABRE stands for Social, Academic, Emotional, Behaviors, Risk Screener. So the teachers in grades 1 through 5, so that's about 2,500 of our students, took this survey based on all of their students. And you can see in each of those categories, social, academic, and emotional, they were rating their students based on all of those components there. So you can just kind of take a quick look that we're looking at some social behaviors, and each of the ratings depended on whether 3 was a positive thing or 3 was a negative thing. So it all worked out in the end. And it came together to make a composite. So the graph on the right is how they rated students in the fall, and then how they rated students in the spring. Keep in mind, tragedies happened. Also, each teacher is different when they rate their students. Some teachers rate them more difficult. Some teachers rate them a little light. It's a little bit, it's not an exact science, but it does give us information we can go on, like this. Okay, there's a lot of bars here, so hang on. In the pink is that composite score that you're seeing there. I just broke it apart by grade level, because this information is okay, but we want to know what grade levels need the most work. So looking at grades 1 through 5, you can see in the fall, a lot of our grades actually went up a little bit in the total composite. But we're not hitting that 20% threshold of students at risk for social emotional behaviors. Then I took each of those categories and broke them apart as well. Because not only do we want to see what grade level needs the most work, but in which component do we need the most work, so that we can be completely targeted in our work and in our programs. So I like to show you that 20% line in the fall for social behaviors, grade 2, does this have a laser on it? Oh, but it doesn't want to hit the screen.
It's a TV. It's LED.
Huh?
It won't work on an LED.
Gotcha.
Okay. You're gonna have
We've been looking for that.
you're gonna have to follow the graph, because I can't get my microphone over there.
Would you like me to come point?
No, we got this. Okay. Second grade is the second lightest green. Look at where they were above that line for social behavior in the fall. And we worked on a program, so now they're still a little bit above that line, but it dropped significantly. Look at the second dark green, which is 4th grade for social. 4th grade now dropped below that 20% line. So in each building, they worked on social behaviors with those grade levels. That really tall one on the right for emotional in the fall, we got then down below the line. So having this information and taking action on this with specific plans was that's what we were looking for. We wanted to know what to do, and this was helping us tell us what to do. Then the students also take a survey. We did this with students in grades 4 through 8. They take the same questions. They're just generated more at the I. I argue with others. I get along with my peers. And they rate it down at the bottom, like a Likert scale, but there's also a visual for younger kids who don't understand the Likert scale or maybe can't read it. So here you have how the students rated themselves in the fall. We had, not all middle schools did it in the fall, but they did it in the spring. So we have some information to go on. And this one, I forgot to mention, will be helpful for starting next year. We know which grade levels need work next year, in which category. So lastly, This is not unique to Lake Orion. There definitely is attendance issues happening all over. But it's not until you actually see it. Like, you can be told, yeah, our attendance rates are going down, or, truancy is up, but until you see what's happening. Back in 1819, I kind of made this scale up myself on the bottom. The dark green is students missed less than 5% of school. That kind of works out to 0 to 7 days, okay? Then the light green is 8 to 14 days. That's 5 to 10% of school. And I kind of went up in 5% increments after that. So you can see in 1819, we had about, looks like 93% of our students missing 5 to 10% or less of school. Even though I still think that's a lot, I was being generous. Take a look at this year, and that has reduced itself down to about 74%-ish for students. But what is the biggest change is that beige section. In 1819, we had 4% of our students missing 15 to 22 days of school. And now we have almost 18%. There's lots of reasons behind it too, whether they're good or bad. Parents are working from home now. It's a little bit easier to have your kids stay home. Teachers are making it a little bit easier because we now have Teams and we have Seesaw and we can post things. So it's a little bit easier for kids to not come. Kids are now saying they have anxiety. Like, all of these reasons are valid and true, but we need to work with them to get our kids back in our seats. So we made a commitment as a district in our school improvement process to include this as a 4-year goal. Now, when you do this for the school improvement process, you have to choose strategies, assign those strategies to schools, and then monitor those strategies to make sure you reach that goal in 4 years and hit interim targets. So we plan to increase 5% every year for students missing less than 15 days of school. And lastly, I want to thank you for giving me this time, and happy summer. I mean, we love summer. But the teachers, the interventionists, and the LSS staff, those are the ones that give the kids all of these assessments and give us this data that we use. So I want to thank them for all their hard work. And sometimes we got to give another assessment, but there's a good reason, and we use it, and we take action. That's it.
Thank you for all your good work. I'm sure you have questions, board?
Jake's got questions.
No, I just want to thank you that you covered what they tell board members of, our job is set policy oversight. How's it going? So these are great. It's how's it going? And they say the ABCs, attendance, behavior, and curriculum. And your report covered the A's, attendance, the behaviors from our SABRs, and the curriculum. So it's really good data. This is what we need as a board to see, to get the evidence of what the program is, and we can see with the attendance that it's not where we want it to be, but you said, hey, we've got an action plan. So that's what gives us confidence in the board and in our administration, pushing this through to say that they've got their eyes on the right things, and as a board, that allows us to have our schools working in the way that our community desires. So I thank you for the report, and thank you to the leadership for staying on top of these issues as well as you do.
And I can tell you too, on the attendance, I like to break things down into different things. Looking at this by building, it pretty much was the same across the board. There wasn't one building that stood out more than the others. So I thought that was interesting.
On the attendance, grade level wise, was the high school a much bigger problem than elementary per se, or was it just this is a pattern across K
Correct.
through 12 basically?
Correct.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah, very interesting. I would have assumed the higher levels.
And I was expecting to see a certain thing at one school and not another, but
Right.
it really was pretty even across the board.
It's very interesting.
Do you have a longer view on the attendance looking back?
I don't. The way I had to extract the attendance out of Power School and get it into this was a bit much, so. Until there's an easier way, I don't have it prior years from 18, 19.
Do you have a sense, though? Is this an anomaly based on current circumstances, or do you think it's a trend in that direction?
I don't think that the 21-22 data is an anomaly in terms of everyone else facing the same, like any other district across the nation. I don't know, I can't forecast what it's going to do past this year. All I know is family, like getting that information out to families, knowing that the more seat time we have with them, the more they're going to learn and our achievement is going to go up.
Missy brought up a couple of really good factors. Obviously, they're really impactful factors, but the other piece is, you have we've had 6 students, and also we've had students really dealing with, and she mentioned the anxiety, but after the first of the year or the end of last calendar year, there was a lot of families that were working to get kids back into school comfortably too. So there's a lot of factors, which she did bring up some of them, so.
But I think, Jim, to your this is kind of it is an anomaly for,
Anomaly.
you know what I'm trying to say.
I got it.
Anomaly. I can't say that word. For Lake Orion.
Well, I know it is for Lake Orion,
Yes,
because
yes.
that really is
Because-
kind of a different direction than what Lake Orion's done traditionally.
Absolutely.
But I
Yeah.
just wondered, you mentioned some good points about more parents working from home and that kind of thing.
Yes.
Does that kind of invite this, looking forward, that it'd be more likely to say, well, stay home, I'll be here?
Yes.
That kind of thing.
I've read a couple articles where that, they've collected some data based on that. And until we're back in the workplace, and maybe we're not all back in the workplace,
Right.
but educating parents on just because you're working from home, it's still need to get your kids to school.
Right.
So,
Well, and again, we talked a little bit about it, but you got to remember, we spent a lot of time asking parents to keep their kids home.
Right.
right?
Quarantine.
Differently than when
Right.
they were in 18, 19 in the previous years. If you had any consideration, your child might be sick, let's think about keeping them home.
Right.
So I think everybody's been dealing with this, and she brings up a very valid point, and we're all going to be looking towards solutions and so on. But one of the things, not to expand on that, but we talked a little bit about the behavior, but a lot of the districts across our county have talked a lot about high increases at the secondary level of physical violence. And so, I mean, there's just a lot that has been happening over the last couple of years that has impacted why kids come to school and whether they're comfortable in the learning and everything. So, but thank you.
And the cool part about these two, they're in Illuminate, which is our data warehouse system. You can actually click on each of those and get a list of students. You can do it by building, you can do it by subgroup. So each building can actually monitor this by having those students' names, reaching out if they have to. But that's why I tried to extract it and then import it into here to get the best use out of it as we could.
Good. Rick, did you have something?
Ben touched on what I
Okay.
was going to comment on.
All right, great.
I have
Yes,
some
Bert.
questions. First of all, thank you so much. I always look forward to your presentations, Missy, because they're so informative. And I'm wondering if we have access to the slides, because I would love to review this again.
Sure. Julie has them.
And then I'm wondering if you can shed some light for us in an understanding of how quickly you have access to the Fast Bridge assessment data for real-time turnaround use. I mean, it's clearly in the year. I'm just wondering how fast.
As soon as they take it.
That's amazing.
Yep. As soon as they take it. And then it also goes into reports teachers can look at right away so that they can see where their students are at.
Nothing like having data that's readily available and usable.
Yeah.
And then one other thought, and clearly this isn't available or you would be showing us, but has there been any thought from the ISD to collaborate with this information and work together and work smarter in the county for some kind of best practices, for lack of a better word?
So you're given a choice. Every district gets a choice on which vendor they want to use. So in Oakland County, there's probably, I mean, I could count them, 5 or 6 districts that use FastBridge.
Right.
Then there's NWEA,
Right.
Smarter Balance, there's many different vendors. So we do have like a users group where we get together and talk. But other than that, there isn't like a collaboration in that way. We just talk about the data and what we're doing with it. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate all your good work.
You're welcome.
Happy summer.
Thank you.
Have a good summer.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Missy.
Melissa.
All right, so we'll move to our next presentation, and it's our would it be quarterly? It's kind of quarterly, athletic
Seasonally.
update.
Seasonally. There we
I
go.
like that word.
Spring season.
Chris, please.
Good evening. Thank you again for having me. Happy to report out on the spring. Obviously, you know, it's hard to remember back when spring season started because we're dealing with 95-degree temperatures right now, but we had one of the coldest March and Aprils that I can remember. Not only cold, but also very wet, which created some challenges for all of our coaches and our student athletes. But they went on to have a very successful spring. You know, as I was going through and I was pulling up the data and looking at pictures, the one thing that came through, I had a little bit of an aha moment. Looking at the smiles, the hugs, you know, remembering the laughter, the kids had a great time. You know, it was really a successful spring, and our coaches create such a great culture for the kids and a place for them to belong to and really express themselves and focus and compete. And it was so from that aspect, regardless of wins or losses, our spring was a success. The kids had a great time, and they really represented Lake Orion well. And I credit my coaching staff for doing an outstanding job. But to get to the nuts and bolts of our spring season we had. I have the clicker, all right. Where should I aim? Okay. All right, we had 849 student athletes compete in the spring, making up 21 high school teams, 3 middle school teams. I put this in here as well. We did have our spring signing. We had 12 seniors sign letters of intent, and that gives us over 30 seniors this year that have committed to play, to continue their athletic career at the collegiate level. So very proud of that. A little less busy in terms of hosting than we were this winter, but we did host the girls' soccer districts, girls' softball districts, and we did host a couple rounds of lacrosse as well for their regionals. Most of this presentation will focus on the varsity teams, but you know, our sub-varsity programs were very successful. I do want to highlight our middle schools here. You know, our during the spring season, we have middle school track and field is the only sport that we offer at the middle school level. Other than we do also have middle school lacrosse, but different programs. But our head coaches at for our track and field, Debbie McDonald, Devin Mellows, and Jill McCullum, you know, we've had over 309 middle school athletes competing, very large teams to manage. Imagine, and it's 6 through 8. Kids with a lot of energy that they're managing, but they had great seasons, highlighted by our Oakview girls track team, which was the 2022 Oakland County Middle School champions. They did a great job there. Moving into baseball, our head coach Andy Stramick, their varsity record, they finished with a 29-10 record, finishing second place in the OAA Red. They did win the district championship, taking down the eventual league champion Rochester Adams in the district championship. Or I take it back, in the first round of regionals. They did lose in the second round of regionals to the eventual state champion Orchard Lake St. Mary's. Their pitcher Evan Waters was named second team All-State. They had a great season. Softball also had a great year. Their head coach, Joe Waitira, they won the OAA Red League Championship. They were also the district champions. This is an academic all-state team. They finished with 28 wins and 9 losses. And Avery Case, who just came out, was selected as first team all-state. They call it a designated player. In our language, it's a designated hitter. It's the same thing. Our girls tennis team, head coach Eric Bracciano. This was also an academic all-state team. They finished second in the OAA White. Pictured here is sophomore Sienna Osborne, who made it to the Final Four in the MHSAA individual state championships. Coach Bracciano was recognized as a Regional Coach of the Year. Singles players Nicole Luna, Avi Shah, and Sienna Osborne were named first-team All-State tennis players. Girls soccer, Chris Korteg is our head coach. We also recognize Amanda Hutchinson as a co-head coach. Due to the health procedure this year, Chris had to step back, was not able to coach, served more of an advisory role, and Amanda stepped in and did an outstanding job leading our team. Our girls this year moved up to the OAA Red, which is arguably probably the toughest soccer league in the state of Michigan. And that's with Rochester's, the Troys, Bloomfield Hills, all of that. And actually, the state champion, Bloomfield Hills, came out of our league this year. They finished with 9 wins, 7 losses, and 3 ties. They beat Oxford for the district championship. And then the first round of regionals, they did lose in a tough game to Bloomfield Hills. But a very good season. Girls lacrosse, first-year head coach Megan Elkhorn did a great job. We have a very young team. We're going to lose just 4 seniors off this team, so we've got a lot of talented girls coming back. They finished 11-5. The goalie Paige Walker and midfielder Quinn McElroy both earned second-team All-State honors, and Morgan Vasquez earned All-State honorable mention. Our boys lacrosse team. Their head coach, Ron Hebert, finished 14-7, which was second place in the OAA Red. It's the first time in Coach Hebert's tenure that he has not won our league championship. They lost a tough game to our rivals to the west. But with that, we don't say the C word in here, just so you know.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. With that, Coach Hebert, his first victory of the season, he did record his 300th career win, which we recognized before a later home game. Next season, assuming we win a couple, which I'm sure we will, Coach Hebert is on course to become the winningest coach for boys lacrosse in the state of Michigan. Wow. So a great tribute to him. Kyler Carson was named third-team All-State. As an attack, Sam Haynes, third-team All-State midfield, and Braden Drury was All-State honorable mention from the attack position. Our boys golf team, pictured here is head coach Monty Gallagher. They won the Indianwood Invitational Tournament. They finished second in the league in the OAA Red. They finished 8th in the Oakland County Tournament. They did finish 3rd out of 12 teams qualifying for the MHSA championships. And in that regional, freshman Connor Fox was a regional champion. He shot 3 under par. And looking at some of those golf swings they showed up on screen before, I don't think we shot under par yesterday, did we? Just kidding. Who was in the blue shirt? Whose swing was that?
It was John.
John, was that you?
We're going to have to talk.
I'm going to put you in touch.
Monty does lessons.
Monty does do lessons out there. So he's but they finished. So they made it to the state finals, and they finished 7th in the state at the state finals. So a very good showing. It's a 2-day event out there in Big Rapids, and then also senior Nathan Fox was named academic all-state golfer. We have our boys and girls water polo teams. We operate as a co-op with Clarkson High School. So we do have some Clarkson athletes that play on our teams. Our head coach is Kevin Ott. He's the head coach of the boys. Our head coach for the girls is Julia White. We are the home school, so all practices, all competitions take place at Lake Orion High School. They both had solid seasons, did very well. Not many schools have a water polo team. They are changing, much to our dismay. They are moving the boys' season back to the fall starting next year. It was nice having them both together because we're not competing with the girls' swim season and the boys' swim season and liquid lightning and all of that. So now moving them back it's going to create some obstacles, but we'll figure it out. But like I said, both, it's a very solid program, and they had very good years. Our boys and girls track team, head coach, the legendary Stan Ford. Stan oversees both programs. He only had 183 student athletes that he had to oversee in the track program. for the 10th consecutive season, and not many people understand how hard this is, for the 10th consecutive season, our boys won the OAA Red Championship. And they don't win the titles just because we have the fastest boys. There's a lot of lineup balancing that has to take place to figure out how to score points with different matchups, and Stan's a master at that, and as well as developing his talent. We also were Oakland County champions, and the boys and girls multiple boys and girls qualify for the MHSAA state championships. And we had, you'll see up here, Stephen Brown was all-state in 3 events. Dorian Hill in 1, Austin Kahn in 2 events, Joey Theed in 3 events, and Anais Pilot in 1 event. So they had a great showing at the state finals. At the end of the year, carrying on a tradition that goes way back, we honor a senior athlete of the year. I get nominations from our coaching staff, and then we select the athletes of the year. This year, Elena Tisch was selected as our female athlete of the year. She's a track and cross country athlete. In her career, she's been a county champion, regional champion, a state qualifier, and taking mostly AP and honors courses. She's a 4.6 GPA student. She's an amazing young lady. And for the boys, we had Alden Ritt, who's been a 3-year varsity basketball player. He received All-State Honorable Mention honors. He was our key guy in leading us to 2 consecutive league championships. He's going on to compete next year at Grand Valley State on a basketball scholarship. He carries a 4.2 GPA. Elena, by the way, is going on to Michigan State, and she'll be going to the Honors College at Michigan State. So great representatives of our senior class. Before I go on to our next slide, I do want to update you. I told you in the winter that the OAA has started this all-sports trophy. With the strong spring that we've had, we're in the hunt. I don't have the results. We have another school is tabulating everything. So we're going to be right there. So as soon as we know, we will announce that.
The school to the west isn't doing the tabulation, are they?
Bring in the
It's one
auditors.
to the south, but they're in the running. It's one of the schools that are in the running. So,
Aren't they always?
so hopefully we got good news to start next year. Okay. We do have a spring sport coach recognition, our spring season coach of the year, and with Coach Ford is his wife Rose. If I can have Coach Ford and Rose please both come up and stand next to me as I introduce Coach Ford. Now, as most of you know, we had a nice party for him a couple weeks ago. I thank you for attending. It was a lot of fun. We called it a party and a roast in one. It was great. But, Coach Ford, obviously, our boys' head cross-country coach, our boys and girls' head track coach. He's a retired teacher from Lake Orion Schools, teaching in Elizabeth Street, which is right next door, Blant Sims for a number of years, and then finishes his career at the high school. And so they said he taught, is it 34? 36?
33 years.
33 years. And then the coaching, he's been coaching for us for 40 years. And he is retiring. He has retired as one of our coaches. I kept trying to ink him to 1 more year. Just, take the fall off, we'll get you in the spring. But, Coach Ford, one of the best coaches, regardless of any sport. You talk about an icon and a gentleman who has had an impact on our student body. And in terms of the development of our young men and young ladies, he's a great example to all coaches that come through. And he's a tremendous loss to us. And we're going to keep him around. We're going to keep him busy. I have his phone number. I know where he lives. So we're going to keep him around. But you just don't replace a Coach Ford. And as good as he is as a coach, those that know him would agree with me when I say he's an even better person. And with him, every step of the way has been his wife, Rose, because when one coaches, the spouse is married to the sport as well. That's just the way it works. And Rose has been a huge supporter of our programs, a volunteer, whether she wanted to be or not, at all the big events that we hosted. So we really appreciate her as well. But a teacher, a coach, a mentor, and a friend to so many student athletes, our spring season coach of the year is Coach Stan Ford.
obviously, there's a lot of support that goes into what we do at our level, starting with you folks and working its way all the way down. I've benefited from this process, and I working with the kids, it's kept me young despite what you might see. And then with the support of Chris's office, it's made the job that much easier because it allows us to be able to do what we do. I think behavior is stressed with our kids because and who we represent, but they represent themselves, they represent their families, they represent me. I'm the one that gets the phone call when they're misbehaving at Eva's in the summertime, because people know who you run with, so you need to make sure that you wear your Clarkston, don't wear your Lake Orion gear when you're messing around. But it's been an ongoing thing, and I look at the fact that we've chosen to live in Lake Orion. Because I wanted people to see everything. I didn't want to live outside the district and be able to behave any way I wanted to. I wanted our behavior as a dad, as a married couple to represent Lake Orion. And so it's been a pleasure and will be missed. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Ford, I think that your math is off a little bit on your years, because I've been graduated for 30 years, and you were my gym teacher in second grade. So,
Which math?
well, you said 30 years that you taught.
You said 33.
33. So that put me at 10th grade. There's still 7 years.
Scott thinks it's 40.
Thank you, Chris.
Oh,
That's
true.
true.
He hasn't.
Oh, that's true.
We're okay.
Again, thank you for having us. I wish you all a great summer. And if you need me at all, I won't be hard to find. They're all at the football field most of the summer, so have a great summer.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Go Dragons.
Right?
Thank you, Stan.
Another tremendous dragon story.
Amazing.
Well, the good news continues. The good news continues. We have no public participation this evening, and so we'll move on to strategic area discussion items, and we'll begin with Ben. He's on the move.
It's a big day when Ben's up.
Yeah, I'm tired of sitting.
You're going to take the podium.
No, actually, with all the great presentations, I thought I would just piggyback on that and hope it's close to what they did. But at any rate, I just wanted to, acknowledge the work that a couple of our board members have accomplished over the last year. I think it was last week, we had an opportunity to go to Michigan Association of School Boards presentation with Oakland County, and I wanted to acknowledge and present certificates to a couple of the board members. The first one, Danielle, she received the Certified Board Member Award, which means she completed all the Level 100 courses. And she also received the Award of Merit, which means that she did an additional 45 educational credits behind the 100 level courses. So congratulations to Danielle. So I'll give you your certificates and pins.
Thank you.
If you want to stay, actually, we'll just get a picture right now. Thank you. Yeah, stay for Birgit as well. And then also wanted to recognize Birgit. Birgit has earned the Data Specialty Award, which means she did all the 100 level courses in addition to 5 other specific courses really related around data. So congratulations to Birgit as well. Do you want to get a picture of them
Together, yeah.
Get a picture of them together, Mark, if you would. You guys will come together. Yeah, there you go.
Smart side out.
Smart side out.
I'm glad Mark has a lot of film in the camera.
This is yours. Yes, and this was yours. All right, very good. Congratulations to the two of you. Appreciate the hard work.
Great job, great job.
And before we move on, I just want to share something from that evening. Unfortunately, Birgit was not well and couldn't be with us, but when I was talking to some other board members from other districts that were receiving awards as well, and they looked over and they said, your superintendent's here and your board president's here. I said, yes, they are. They're like, that is amazing that they're here to support you. So thank you for being there.
Oh, you're welcome.
Happy to be there.
Thank you for acknowledging
It
that.
was
I
great.
appreciate it. Yeah, it was a nice
It
event.
was a great night. We missed Birgit.
Yes. Being there.
In Birgit fashion, though, she was texting us, just checking to see how it was going, right? Also, just to acknowledge a little bit more, Birgit just recently was notified, and the rest of the team doesn't know this, but she was just notified that she was selected as an at-large member of the Special Education Advisory Committee, which advises the State Board of Education on matters concerning the education of children with disabilities. So, I don't know, Birgit, if you want to share a little bit with the team and what that all means?
Yeah, it came about for me as being a part of the MASB Board of Directors, and we're one of the entities that has presence on that committee. And it advises not only the State Board of Education, but also the Michigan Department of Education on special education needs and guidance on policy. We're not policymakers, but we provide guidance. I am just really getting my feet wet and learning what it's about. We meet monthly. I've been appointed to a 3-year term. One other person from the MASB Board of Directors is joining me in this role. And it meets every month. I have yet to see how much work will go into it because this team is deep and committed to this very amazing work. I am very honored to be on it and represent MASB as a Board of Education member, but also Lake Orion. And I want to give a hat tip to Heather Rutledge from the high school, who also was recently appointed. We just got appointed on the 14th by the State Board of Education to this role, so it's brand new to me also. But thank you for the opportunity for letting me share with you this next level work that I get to be a part of.
Awesome, congrats.
That's really an
Birgit.
honor.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
All right, well, thank you. And also, as far as some legislative updates, nothing definitive yet on the budget, even though we are committed to doing the work by the deadline. But really, all we're hearing at this point, unless John's going to correct me, is $435, but it's not $435 for per pupil increase, but that's not solid, but that's what all the rumors are. It seems to be the one standard piece, but we're not sure about all the categoricals and the different pots of funding and whatnot. So we're continuing to wait patiently. Some of us have more patience than others, but we are waiting. So we will let you know once something is more confirmed. Also, in the legislative action, the personal finance bill, House Bill 5190, was signed by the governor. And what that does is it puts a half credit of personal finance requirement and reduces the foreign language requirement from 2 credits to 1.5 credits in the Michigan Merit Curriculum. So in essence, our kids would be required, or all kids in the state of Michigan would be required to take a personal finance course. Now, we do have a personal finance course that we believe will accomplish, but also the state, Michigan Department of Ed will come up with what the course will be made up of, and then districts will compare with what they have, if they already have, and so on, to see if they're meeting the requirements. So that did go into effect, or it goes into effect September 13th, so basically at the start of the next year. First impact is students in grade 8 in the year 2023, so there's a little bit of time for the implementation and districts getting in line. So. Also, House Bill 6013, that is a grant program that I'm kind of excited about. I think Rick would be excited about this as well as the rest of the cabinet, but it would provide funding for mentor teachers as well as student teachers. It would provide funding that the mentor teachers would get $1,000 during the year, and the student teachers would actually get $90 a day while they were doing their student teaching, which is $90 more than they get now. So, but that is
They've ever gotten.
right, and that is really important because that's work that always is on the backs of the districts as far as supporting the mentors and whatnot. But certainly the work that the student teachers are doing is intense. But part of that legislation, which is really important, is that the legislator must also appropriate funding for that program. So they can't just say, you need to do that, and then not give us additional funding. So that is now before the Senate and Education and Career Readiness Committee for further consideration. So that is good news, and I hope that continues through the process. So those were the items that I was going to mention. Is there anything that you had questions about?
Could that be funded with the school aid fund, or do they have to come up with other source of funding?
Well, it's not approved yet, but that is one of the pieces that's in there, and it doesn't specify exactly which pot of money, but it does specify that it has to be funded. So it can't just be rolled into, oh, by the way, don't forget you have to spend money on that. So I would say, because they're talking about grant, that it would be a specific grant fund and be categorical money that we would receive.
I have just a quick question on the reduction of the foreign language requirement in order to meet the personal finance. So it's 1.5 credits. How does that look? Because, would the students just stop halfway through Spanish too? Or, that's a little
They got
confusing.
Spanish 2.5.
Exactly,
In our block
Well,
systems?
and a lot of schools are on semesters, so
Right.
for legislators, that's just what they think everybody is, right? So
Right.
it just makes sense, to them, and that's, part of the disadvantage of legislating curriculum, which is why we don't necessarily support that.
Right.
But we really won't know what that looks like until they tell us which objectives and standards are in there, so
Right.
we can determine. Really, it's about meeting those standards and objectives that are in the courses.
Okay.
So, and we actually are the ones that acknowledge that, yes, our students accomplished that.
Okay, just curious, 'cause
Yeah.
it's very odd, not like 1.5.
Sure, sure.
Credits of a language is a very,
Yep.
Other questions?
Okay.
Great. You good?
I'm good,
All
thank
right,
you.
Thank you. We'll move on to student achievement. Heidi, please.
Okay, before you tonight is approval to apply for Title III funds. I did want to provide a little bit more information regarding Title III. There are two parts to this grant. The first one is for language instruction for students that qualify for English as a second language. In the year 21-22, this past year, our allocation was $26,000, 165. We did have carryover from the previous year of $19,000 because of the pandemic. That wouldn't be typical, but so that carryover was part of this year as well. Some of the things that are used for that particular grant are media center books that are directly to support our EL students, any kind of materials. A big chunk was for summer school support. We have after-school tutoring. There's professional development. And 15% goes towards the EL coach. There's also another part to the grant that is for immigrant students. That allocation this year was $2,000, and there was carryover from the previous year. So things that goes towards field trips. We had a newcomer teaching kit that was put together, professional development, and then there's some community activities that are for that as well, getting the families together and helping to support them. So that's just a little glimpse into the Title III grant and the budget and what it's used for. And in regards to bond, we are just deep into construction right now. Things are going well. Every day counts, every minute counts. And so We're a few weeks away before furniture will begin arriving, and then that will start another level of craziness, making sure that all of the classrooms have the furniture, new furniture that they are planning for the fall. So technology-wise, we have interactive flat panels going up in all of our middle schools. So it's lots of things happening throughout the district. So I think that's it.
Okay, questions for Heidi? That is a lot of things. Yeah. All right, thank you, Heidi. So we'll move on to Curriculum Committee report. Danielle, please.
Yes, sir. In our last curriculum committee meeting, we, first thing we started discussing was the service learning hours requirement we have at the high school, which is, I'm sure most of you know, 20 hours. We just discussed some concerns that the service hours are not as meaningful as they should be. There's not a connection. The students aren't making a meaningful connection, and that certain, we're giving the service hours are being awarded for things that are not truly service. It's not meeting the true volunteer requirement. So Heidi is looking into those concerns, and I'm sure we'll get back to us very soon. Technology, we talked about our technology, specifically in students K through 5 and their devices, and how Lake Orion Schools doesn't have a no homework policy for K through 5, so the students will be not taking their devices home with them next school year. They'll be left in the classroom. And of course, Heidi gave us a very lovely strategic plan update. And there was no public participation. So there we go.
Questions for Danielle?
It was quite thorough.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So we'll move on to Human Resources. Rick, please.
Yes, first off is the certified, recommendation for certified new hires, and that you have that before you. But I also want to share publicly for those who may not have heard, obviously you as a board has heard, and it was communicated with both the staff and the families. Unfortunately, Mr. Steve Hawley will be stepping down as our high school principal to address focus on his health moving forward. We have appointed Mr. Dr. Dan Haas from Scripps Middle School as the new high school principal. And so we're happy to have Dan step into that new role. The middle school Scripps principal position will be posted first thing tomorrow morning, so we'll get moving on getting that replacement for Dan in place. But just want to mention that so that those who weren't aware and who may be listening or participating tonight in whatever format it is that they are, that unfortunately Mr. Hawley is leaving us, and we will miss him very much. He's been a key figurehead in that building for a number of years, and will be truly missed. His leadership will be truly missed, but we wish him well, and we hope that he can take the time that he needs to focus on the health that he needs to focus on. That's all I have there.
You want to talk about the child care contract?
Yeah, I'll move on to the next one, yes. Child care contract before you tonight for ratification. We were able to go through that in a closed session and hit the highlights of that. We're happy to report that we feel very confident and good about that contract and ask for your support tonight.
Great. Thank you. Questions for Rick? All right, thank you, Rick. So we'll move on to Superintendent Mid-Year Evaluation Summary. And as you know, we've spent a great deal of time in fine-tuning the process, and each year we've made a step in the right direction. And this year, I thought we had an excellent process in place. And so this year, the Lake Orion Board of Education has conducted the annual review of the superintendent of schools. The thorough review process was conducted during multiple work sessions by the board, and results have been shared with our superintendent. The year in review will serve a twofold purpose. First, as an annual review as we conclude the 12 months since our last review, and secondly, as a midterm update as we transition our review period from the school calendar to a January to December evaluation period moving forward. I'm pleased to report that we have a superintendent that has demonstrated much success in leading Lake Orion Community Schools again in 2021-22. In all measured evaluation categories, Ben achieved highly effective ratings. The board has given Ben an overall highly effective rating for the 2021-22 evaluation period. The board thanks Ben for all his good work over the last year and looks forward to the coming year with anticipation of continued success under his leadership as we implement the recently approved strategic plan for Lake Orion Community Schools. Thank you, Ben, for all your good work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So in tandem with that, we would move on to superintendent contract, and just to look back and look forward, it's not uncommon for boards to offer a baseline contract to a new superintendent because we have no evaluation period to work off of. And so we did that in this most recent superintendent hiring. And now we've had that period of evaluation. And so the board undertook with, led by a committee, and I want to thank Jake and Danielle for their work, or Susan, I'm sorry. Danielle was on the other committee.
Yeah.
We undertook a new approach to this, and it's really kind of a teaming approach, utilizing an outside resource, and that resource helped us to develop some peer school districts that we were working as a baseline for determining compensation for the superintendent contract. This is kind of a parallel to what we do with many of our other bargaining groups in terms of developing that peer group and trying to get to a midpoint in that peer group compensation. And so we did this with our process for Ben, and we've concluded that effort, and we've reached an agreement that I think works for our superintendent and for our school district. And I want to just thank everybody who was involved in that process, both Ben and our committee, as well as the entire board, because we invested a great deal of time in this to come to a conclusion that was that would work for everybody involved. So again, I thank the board, I thank Ben, and we're looking forward to moving forward with a contract that makes sense for Ben and is competitive to the marketplace, and also gives us an opportunity to keep a superintendent who's doing a great job for us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate all the work that everybody's done, and certainly I'm humbled by and appreciative of all the support that you've given us, myself and our team and the entire district. But thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move on to finance and operations. John, please.
Good evening. Tonight in your packet is the fiscal 22 final amendment second reading. We reviewed this on the first June meeting. As a refresher, total revenue budget is $94,099,744. Total expenditure budget is $93,748,426, with an operating budgeted surplus of $351,318. And a budgeted fund balance of $8,975,815, which is 9.6% of expenses. I'd be more than happy to give you a more detailed dive if we have more questions or desire, based upon being second reading.
Questions for Jen? We kind of probed at this before.
Thank you. Also in your packet is the proposed adopted budget for next fiscal year, fiscal 23. It too is treated as a second reading, and just as a refresher, it's really, speaking of 1.5 classes, this is really like a 2.5 reading. The original forecast that we do in February as the basis and establishment of this coming year's adopted budget, and then we review in the process, and then we come to tonight's refresher, which has most up-to-date information. Ben had touched on a little earlier. There's not a lot known in terms of this year's school aid budget. So in this year's adopted budget, it does incorporate several assumptions, and I'll walk through those in 1 second, that are educated guesses and based on prior year experience. But as most fiscal years in the last few years, our First Amendment in next fiscal year will be the time when we tie down to what actually the state actually does approve, based on the timing of when they approve it. So in terms of the assumptions associated with it, the key revenue assumptions are based upon property tax growth of about 3%. Student enrollment projections in terms from a budgeting, so that's an FTE basis that goes through a formula that the state provides, as opposed to our actual head counts that go on for different reasons in enrollment in our district. So the figure we're using is a 6,958 FTE count for this coming year in terms of our budgeting practice. So relative to the year we're in, that's a slight decline, 6.65 FTE after going through the formula process. That takes into account our typical aging out process from a difference between kindergarten and senior year moving forward. We add back in anticipated mid-grade pickups for the last several, 5, 6, 7 years. We've been picking up students during mid-year move-ins, added to that or removed, but it's been historically added SOC changes and student counts from the SOC, plus some of our shared time programming expectations are added in. So that's where we're at in terms of what's built in this coming year's budget. In terms of the actual FTE planning, so from a state revenue foundational allowance approach, Ben had also touched on, we're going with the governor's proposal to incorporate in our adopted budget. That's a $435 per pupil increase. It's mathematically, it's a 5% increase over the prior year or this year's foundation allowance. So that gets the new budgeted foundation allowance up to $9,135. That is likely going to change. I mean, it literally could go $10 or $100 from that, depending upon the conference committee's resolutions and conclusions when they're done at the legislative level. We did incorporate another big common piece between the three houses or the three pieces of government were related to special ed funding, Section 51F specifically. The governor had a proposal, the Senate had a proposal, and the House was silent, so we took something in the middle and put that into the budget as a starting point. That'll be a classic case of when we roll around to our First Amendment next year, that will be tied down to what it actually ends up landing at. So in terms of the Section 147C funding, we do, as we have been doing over the last several years, we roll forward this year's known number into next year's adopted budget and also adjust that at the amendment process time next year. So that occurred again in this budget setup. Our federal grant revenue expectation, we've actually decreased it by $1.2 million. That's roughly 19% down from this current year. And that goes back to an earlier conversation too, with respect to the federal funding that we've received, primarily driven by the COVID pandemic over the last 3 years and the planned use of and runoff in terms of that. Next year's the first big year of the step down. The following year will be a little bit more stabilizing and step down, and the year after that we'll get back into our normal federal funding stream, God willing, and there's not another resurgence of something. So that's following this step, that path we talked about in terms of the forecast back in February, in terms of the guiding, avoiding the hard landing, as they say. From the OS, the intermediate school funding level, we're expecting an increase of a little over 4%, and that's purely driven by the P18 revenue model, the way that works. We're funded, or we're communicated to or from the ISD level in terms of their estimated amounts they're going to be assigning to each district. So that number gets baked into this adopted budget. Our other financing sources are really funding that comes to the general fund from our other funds, meaning our community service fund as an operating transfer back to the general fund. That's really reflective of a indirect service charge, so to speak, helping them pay for, payroll operations, HR operations, things like that. So the community service fund is budgeted at $225,000, which is back to or nearly to where they were prior pandemic, which is to me sign of getting back to health for that fund and that operation. Food services back to its level, pre-pandemic level. Our center programs are also contributing between the two programs that we're running within the county is a little over $248,000 is going to be materializing in support of the general fund's operations. A couple of key expenditure assumptions from the personnel side. We typically run 5, 6, 7 retirements from the professional ranks in any given year. This year, we had the final number that we were talking about landed on was 18 professional ranks and another 10 or 12 from the balance of the staffing of the district. So this year was on average higher than normal. That's captured in this coming year's budget in terms of particularly from the professional staff and the way funding goes on in terms of their contract base relative to new people coming on board. So that's captured and from a general wage and salary budget planning point of view, we know what existing contracts read. We make some assumptions about the overall environment, how much is funding's coming from the state and things like that. And from a budgeting point of view, we come up with what I refer to as the base budgets for the wages and benefits. From a year-to-year comparison, the next year's adopted budget is about 1.23% larger than this year's wage base, and that incorporates all of that staffing, retirement movement, all the known contract movements and the different contracts and all of those things. So it's more of a reflection in terms of how we build our budget forward as to the mechanics of existing things in place as opposed to, so-and-so's getting a 1.23% raise. So that's built in. Our weighted average MIPSers cost is our retirement charge that we pay for every dollar of wage, we pay this percentage and back to the retirement system. So we're going to do flat and stay flat at 28% for this coming year's budget as well. That's a composite number based on the 7 retirement programs that are going on in that world. And that does flex a little bit during the course of the year, but they've been landing pretty predictably and this year we're in now, next year is going to be about the same in the 28% range. So every dollar of salaries and wages the district pays, we also pay 28 cents into the retirement fund based on that. And again, for the 147C funding, that's the district-wide, we received $7.9 million, so that's rolling forward into next year's budget, and that'll be adjusted to whatever final comes through the state school aid budget. And then the healthcare cap rates are stable to what they've been this current year. The singles are $6,685 cap, and the two persons is $13,980, and families $18,232. This information, by the way, I'm just pulling the key pieces out of the document already provided. From a utility and a fuels budgets point of view, which seems this past year became much more relevant in terms of forward planning. Our electrical budget has been budgeted upwards to $1.165 million, which is really kind of a sad thing because we've been working very hard to stabilize and drive it down the last few years, and it's just it's jumping up, as well as the natural gas budget. The natural gas budget's in much better shape. We locked into a longer-term agreement for 80% of our known usage. So the spot market, for instance, was breaching at $7 to $7.50 per gas unit, and we were locked in at $2.80. So we're pretty stable. Some districts are actually buying at the spot. They're just getting killed in terms of those. I mean, their budgets are doubling in that regard. So we're pretty good in that respect. Our bus fuel budget doesn't offer any of those kinds of forward planning capacity. It's more of a case of we use what we use and work on minimizing our use. We're planning that budget to go up for a material amount to about $380,000. We've had it down to as low as $200,000 in the last 5 years. So those are really reflective of the current economic environment, inflation, and things like that, feeding those elements. So long story short, a quick overview of what the aggregate amounts. So the adopted revenue budget is $94,053,655. The adopted expenditure side is $93,617,128. The operating surplus is budgeted at $436,527. Ending fund balance is budgeted at $9,412,342. Projecting a 10.2% of total expenditures in terms of fund balance relative to our expenditure base, which jumps up to 11.1% if we could get rid of the 147 piece, which is my ongoing issue. And then also incorporated in the documents are the formal establishments of the budgets for our Pine Tree ASD program, Pine Tree SEI program, the Community Service Fund, the Food Service Fund, the School Activity Special Revenue Fund, the Debt Service Funds, the Building and Site Fund, our Bond Series 2 Capital Projects Fund, our District Capital Projects Fund, our Bond Series 1 Capital Project Fund, and our Risk Internal Fund. I would be more than happy to address any questions or concerns or thoughts.
Questions for John?
If not, I'll just move right into the next subject matter.
Please, carry on.
Also, this is the time of year when the board reauthorizes our legal and financial agents of record and operational delegations. It actually shows up as page 153 of the board packet. It's the resolution that's got a lot of words and long read. And it really covers our legal firms, our banking investment depository agencies, the board's accounting firm, and signatory authorizations. And again, that's on 153, and then I'd be happy to read the entire thing, or just save that for the actual.
We'll save.
We'll save that one? Okay, good. I appreciate that.
So do we.
We do. I'm sure you guys appreciate want to hear me from it too. We do have a procurement as well, an authorization request. We are looking to purchase laptop carts for the buildings. There's a 245 count cart request. It is purchasing equipment through the district's preferred technology vendor, CHI, based on, CHI, as you recall, back in 2019, we went out and did a RFP for a preferred vendor, whose pricing at that time was based upon REMC, cooperative pricing. Incorporated with that, when you do an RFP on top of that, you lock into the REMC pricing or cooperative pricing at that time, and it provides vendors opportunities to put other enhancements in contracts. For instance, as mentioned in this procurement, there's a $68,000 credit that we're getting from CI as part of that process, and that's applied to the purchase of these units. So it's a $314,000 acquisition for the cards, but it's actually an aggregate $383,000. And then there's a $68,000 credit applied through that process. So in terms of our actual payment, it's $314,761.64. And we're also requesting a $19,000, $183.50 contingency amount. I'm sure as we get through this process, we're going to realize we needed something more than 245, or something's not how we expected, whether it's wiring in a site or something along those lines, hence the contingency request. So that totals up to $333,945.14. So we are requesting the board to authorize administration to finalize and execute those agreements. Any questions?
Questions on?
It does for those keeping score at home from a per unit perspective. From the $383,000, the aggregate amount, it's about $1,566 per unit. When you apply the credit, it's about $1,284 a unit. So it was a healthy credit and appreciated.
So just for clarification purposes, this is laptop carts for every classroom in every elementary building.
Correct. I believe it's
Not
just set up
into
with
middle
2 carts
schools.
for every room.
Did I say? No, 2, yeah.
Yep.
And that because they're going to be kept here, they're not going home. And now we have a safe place to keep them and keep them.
It does provide, we
Charged.
know they're safe and they're charged when they come in. There's no flip of the coin if someone's going to show up with a
Right.
drained battery. So there's a lot of benefits to the program as well. Any other questions on that one? I will keep progressing. So also is included tonight is what I refer to as a district fee update. In the past, we would do more formal piece with it. We're not changing probably 95% of everything involved because of the events of the last few years. We're just moving forward with pricing. There are a couple of exceptions, so I'll point those out. Our early childhood centered program is a totally tuition-funded program, and they haven't increased in a material way or across the board way rates for almost 3 years. So this coming year, there's a 7% increase on the tuition. And it really is being driven, just like everybody else, it's being driven by wage cost increase, material increases, all the rest of the stuff that everybody else is trying to deal with. 7% on the face of it sounds on the large side, but when you think about it in context, it's over 3 years plus the inflation issue. It's really quite a moderate approach. Thanks for the word, good word. Moderate fee base, or moderate increase to the fee base. Also in our natatorium, the pool, some of the different programming that's going on there, there's a few different changes there that are highlighted. So it's really, I want to say there's probably 12 off the top of my head. I'm picturing the schedule. I believe I included the schedules too in the packets. So there were not large increases, typically $1 or $2 per session, per swim session increase. Again, that's just feeding Amy down in the natatorium. It's just trying to keep pace because she's, between trying to get lifeguards and trainers and let alone be fair and try to pay an amount that keeps people with us, and those kinds of things are feeding into that. And then just for, in the food service world, we're not planning on making changes to food service prices this coming year. Those will be brought forward. The caveat there is that recently Senator Stabenow and Senator Murkowski have introduced at the federal level the potential for moving forward with the federal subsidy, federal funding again. I'm personally not a big fan of that approach. It's got a lot of drawbacks that hurt districts. The districts that need the funding, the food the most, get hurt the most because of this. But that is out there, and if that happens, then, and we move forward to, it'll be another subsidized year. So the pricing, the formalized announcement of the pricing won't happen until August, and hopefully by then we'll know if this other piece is going to happen. So, and Mark will keep everybody, the families, in the loop in that regard. So, any questions on fees?
Question? I did have one question on the early childhood. When you are analyzing your increase, you're not just looking at your costs, you're also looking at the marketplace.
Yeah, it's a cross-reference between what's going on around us. It is a competitive fee-based program. It's just like any other. So it's incorporated in terms of that regard. As everybody's going through that. They're all having the same issues. We are fortunately having less of a personnel issue than some of the competitors in the area. I've heard some of outright have been leaving the industry because of you just can't get people to work. And so that's all in there too.
Great, all right.
I would like to do a quick review on a follow-up from the last meeting. We had conversations about the potential for our general levy millage being reduced, and from a point of view of us falling under our 18 mil legal levy amount because of what's known as the millage reduction fraction in the calculations. And like this year, the LTO 4029 that the board approved, that you approved this past meeting, the first meeting in June, that had a reduction of a millage reduction fraction of 0.9882. And the way that works is that reduces the amount of our levy that we can, our authorized levy. And if it continued in such a manner, and it would reduce our authorized level below the 18 mils over the next, if that continued for the next few years, within 2 to 3 years, it'd be a potential issue. So what I wanted to do is I went back and, based on some of the conversation we did have at the board on that night, went back and looked at this year's process, how, from a calculation point of view. I was much more immersed in a lot of this in my prior position over at the ISD. So I had to do a little digging to get myself totally back at the speed and how some of the actual calculation works. So I thought I'd put a little page together, do a quick little overview so everybody gets on the same page in terms of how it works. And really from an inflation point of view, most cases on the face of it, when you think inflation, it'll cause you problems. The way the formula works, so on that top box with the yellow bars, that's actually where we're at this year. We had that 0.9882 millage reduction fraction, and the actual inflation for this cycle was 3.3% as far as the state's posting of what the state recognizes. So the formula off to the right there is the taxable value minus losses, and I'll do a 30-second overview of how those work, times the inflation rate, and then the divisor is the new level of taxable value, the 2022 taxable value, minus additions for the year. So their goal is they're trying to take a snapshot of what started the year with, strip off anything else that may occur to that base, for instance, losses. So if you think about the building that unfortunately burned down next to Fork and Pint, that would show up as a loss in next year's taxable value calculation. And when they rebuild it, whatever its new value, it will be that year or whenever it gets done, that'll show up as an addition to this tax base. So when you move down to the next box, my goal was what happens to do a little scenario testing here. If you spike inflation up, what's it do? And then I moved on to, well, what's our break-even inflation level relative to this year's TV taxable value and the 2022 taxable value? So that's the green and the blue. So if the inflation were at 7.5%, which frankly, I think we'll probably have a number closer to that when we're doing this next year, it actually does a situation where we'll have no millage reduction fraction based on the math of the formula and this year's additions and losses. So then I thought to myself, well, what does history look like for our district in terms of additions and losses over the last X number of years that I could find data on? So that's that last set of boxes in the orange at the bottom. So that is really, if we have an inflation rate of 3.4% recognized at the state level or higher, we will have zero, our millage reduction fraction will be at 1.0, so it'll have zero impact on our levy. So the question becomes, and the further discussion that thought will be put into, what do we really think the inflation is going to be showing up at this time next year with the way the state actually calculates it? They do a CPI version, and they produce that through the state treasury, and that's what's fed into all these. So in that regard, it's a whole lot of talk about an issue that becomes of great importance if it goes badly. So I wanted to put to the board, this is a little refresher for myself and a quick pick up to the board of, this is how this formula works. So for this coming year, I'm not overly concerned that we're going to run into where we'll fall below the 18 mils, but it does still refresh the radar screen of our planning, and which actually shows up in our strategic plan as well, timing up, move forward with some of these millage rate renewals. Happy to answer any questions, thoughts, concerns.
Questions for John?
I think I did a pretty good color code. Probably needed, after the earlier conversation about the district to the west, I needed to keep the orange or maybe the blue out.
This is helpful to do this, though, because it affirms where your plan is, and it gets us right where we need to be.
We typically do what I refer to as more of an acid test approach, a tested approach to it every year. It's more of a, this happened this year, if the same thing happens next year and a few years out, what's it look like? This is a little more variable-based and scenario-based, so it's kind of widens the picture as to what's the probability of what things are going to look like for this coming year.
It also clarifies how complex all of it is. It's not one factor that is creating the end result.
It's certainly multifaceted.
Yeah, there's
Very much appreciated that you did do it that way to say, okay, because that was the reason that the question came up. Hey, we do have this big change with inflation, and appreciate the fact that, you know, you dug into it. Just to clarify, the millage reduction factor there, positive, that means nothing though. That if
it's one or higher, nothing happens to our millage.
The millage, obviously, we can only levy 18, but it wouldn't even set that base up from whatever we are, 18.45 now or whatever we are.
Correct.
It can be that or lower, but what you're saying is in most of these scenarios, it's hard to see that it would be, that we're going to be facing a millage reduction factor.
Yes.
And like I say again, just appreciate the fact that, good, we've completely covered it.
Yeah, we did the circle back too. And the thing is that I keep a close eye on inflation, and that's how it feeds in the different barometers that come out and the different organizations that put out their cost of living information. It's actually one of the elements that I feed into the periodic financial report. So if something's changing and we pick up on it as we move further into this new year, we're a good further out on the radar screen, so to speak, when we'll pick it up. So.
Good. Anything else for John? Great, thanks, John, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we'll move to action items, and we'll begin, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the following consent agenda items. Approve payment of the May bills in the amount of $8,778,038.51, and also approve minutes from the June 1st regular and closed session, June 7th curriculum committee, and June 7th, 2022 special and closed session meetings.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. The consent agenda is approved. May I have a motion to authorize Title III?
I move to authorize Lake Orion Community Schools to apply for the Title III funds as recommended.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Title III is authorized. May I have a motion to approve certified new hires?
I move to approve 3 certified new hires as presented.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you.
It's very good at that.
Doublemint twins.
I know.
That was like in harmony.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Jake?
Welcome to Aaron, Chris, and Lisa.
Thank you very much. All right. So may I have a motion to approve the child care contract?
I move to approve the ASME childcare contract agreement effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th of 2024 as recommended.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. Please?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Ms. McQuiston?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Weedman?
Yes. The child care contract is approved. May I have a motion to accept superintendent mid-year evaluation summary?
I move to accept and file the 2021-2022 mid-year evaluation for Superintendent Ben Kirby as presented.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. The mid-year evaluation summary for our superintendent is accepted. May I have a motion to approve the superintendent contract?
I move to approve an employment contract for Superintendent Ben Kirby for the period of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2026 as presented.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Superintendent contract is approved.
You still got a job?
He had another year on the old one.
All right. May I have a motion to adopt the 2021-22 final budget amendment resolution?
I move to adopt the fiscal year 2022 final budget amendment resolution as presented.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. Julie, please.
Ms. Brissette?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Ms. McQuiston?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Weedman?
Yes. The 2021-22 final budget amendment resolution is adopted. May I have a motion to adopt the 2022-23 budget resolution?
Move to adopt the fiscal year 2023 adopted budget resolution as presented.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. Julie, please.
Ms. Brissette?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Ms. McQuiston?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Weedman?
Yes. The 2022-23 budget resolution is adopted. May I have a motion to authorize authorization of legal and financial agents of record and operational delegation?
I got it.
I move to authorize establishing the following law firms to represent the school district. Clark Hill Attorneys at Law, Collins and Blaha PC, Miller Canfield PLC, Miller Johnson, Seacrest Wardle, Adair case. Be it resolved that the PNC Bank is hereby designated as a primary depository of monies belonging to the said school district in the Township of Orion, County of Oakland, State of Michigan, and that monies belonging to said school district shall be deposited in said bank from time to time in the name of the school district and may be withdrawn by check, ACH, or wire signed or authorized by the board treasurer, board president, the superintendent, or the assistant superintendent of business and finance. Authorize establishing the following banks, investment brokers, and local government investment pools as designated depositories for the school district. Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase Bank, Comerica Bank, Fifth Third Bank, Flagstar Bank, Merrill Lynch, MyLaugh Plus Fund, PNC Bank, Oxford Bank. Authorize signing of checks for the general fund, debt retirement, trust and agency funds, food service fund, community service fund, building and site fund, capital projects fund, school activity funds, and payroll by the superintendent or the assistant superintendent of business and finance with the stipulation that checks be required to have one signature. Authorize the superintendent or the assistant superintendent of business and finance to sign for letters of credit on behalf of the school district. Authorize establishing the accounting firm of Plant and Moran PLLC as the school district's auditing firm. Delegate election duties to the superintendent and the election secretary.
Thank you.
Support.
Minute
All
20.
the support.
Support. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. The legal and financial agents of record and operational delegation has been authorized. May I have a motion to authorize technology bid award?
I move to authorize administration to purchase device carts from C-High Computer Products, Inc., not to exceed $314,761.64, with $19,183.50 in contingency funding, for a total not to exceed $333,945.14 as presented.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. The technology bid award is authorized. As I said earlier, there was no one signed up for public participation this evening, so we'll move on to recap and next steps. And Ben, please.
Thank you. I just noticed the one request for the data slides to the Board of Education, so we'll see that you get those within the next
It's already done.
It's already done.
And I
It's in
think
our-
Julie's already taken care of it, so
I don't know that I'm allowed to look at
Next
electronic
steps are
communications during
done.
the meeting.
So
Came
thank
up.
you. Thanks for paying attention during the meeting, Julie.
Speedy Gonzalez.
Thank you. Jen, please.
Nothing further.
All right, thanks. Rick?
Just try to stay cool, everyone.
There
Have a
you
great
go.
summer.
All right, thank you.
Nothing further.
All right, thank you.
Just a bit of thanks to, Chris Bell for coming and doing the presentation and recognizing Stanford, who obviously has committed a great deal of time to our kids. And also just to remind everybody that Chris will be inducted in the Hall of Fame this weekend, actually this Friday, and Mark and I are planning on attending that in support of him. And then also thanks to Missy for her presentation. She definitely has a way of talking about the numbers and how we respond to them, so I really appreciate that. And also just to recognize you guys for the sponsorships at the LOEF golf outing. So I had the sign there yesterday, and it was just one example of the community support, and really appreciate Heidi's leadership with LOEF, and that'll continue to expand, I think, and help our kids. And then lastly, just thanks for the affirmations and support. For me, it's a privilege that I get to come to work every day here, and it's nice working with this team, so thank you.
All right, thank you, Ben. Susan?
Ben just thanked everyone, so I don't need to. But I would reiterate the thanks to Missy and Chris for coming in. It's great information they shared with us today. Also, John, I mean, you went really quick through all that. There was a lot of work behind all that numbers, so I appreciate everything you put into that as well. Thank you. And
Thank you, Susan.
have a great night.
Thank you.
Just welcome to the new folks. Go Dragons.
Thanks, Scott. Danielle?
Thanks to our Missy and Chris. And Chris had it on a slide, but it's actually something he said at Stan's retirement party. It said on the slide, Coach Ford had 42 championships among OA and whatnot. The next closest coach to him has 15. So I think Coach Ford's going to be a legend for a very long time, and great man. And thank him for all his service and throughout the years. So
Thank you, Danielle.
yeah.
Cheek?
Yeah, I want to thank Steve Hawley for the service that he made to the district. Both of my kids went through their tenure at the high school under his leadership, and just the guiding presence. He's a figure that the students greatly respected, and he impacted them. And I also know Dan Haas is gonna do a great job for us. So Lake Orion High School is one of the largest buildings in the state. Last I had heard, it's the third largest student population of any school in the state. So it's a big job. And Steve was, I joked with Ben that the high school principal in a single high school district like us is more the face of the district than anybody. And Steve did such a great job doing that. And on a note, Ben, that we concluded our review. Excellent year. As a board, couldn't be happier that we hired you a couple of years ago, and that you're going to grace us by staying on for the next few years, because the outstanding work that we're going to be able to do as a district going forward is what I'm looking forward to more than anything.
I just want to say how grateful I am to be a part of our community. We stood in the presence of greatness tonight with so many amazing people. And just a hat tip to Steve Hawley for all he's done. 10 years in our building. He started when Eric was a freshman, and I'll never forget him. We will miss him greatly, and you guys will see you in about a month, so enjoy your time off. And thanks for all you're doing, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Birgit. And finally, I'd just like to say that I'm sure that we all will be sending out positive intention to Steve in his journey back to health, and best wishes, and he will be in our thoughts as he works on getting healthy. And we appreciate everything he's done, and he'll be back. We'll be looking for him. Thanks to all of you. I think we made it to the finish line of 2021-22. So on that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
The more ways we can defer from the landfill, the more likely our price, we could potentially see a price reduction at the end of the 5-year contract. That's happened in other communities. So the recycle rewards, the recycle bank, it's free. You don't have to do it, but it's like Speedway rewards, CVS, you all have those cards. There's incentives to participate. And basically, they're not sorting through your stuff. They just, the trucks are all really high-tech and computerized, and they know if they lift up a recycle bin at your address, it puts a little thing in the system, and you get rewarded for that. The good news is you can turn those points in for local businesses, and it's good for local businesses. And we are just been talking with the superintendent tonight of schools. We're going to give them a big check for their Green Schools program because a lot of residents, it's like the old cereal box tops. They're choosing to donate their points to the school. And the recycling club at the school, or environmental club at the school, put a program together, and we're going to fund their whole program. So it's a really cool way to get people to have better habits, and maybe we can keep our prices really stagnant when we have to go to renew the contract. And all that information is available on our website, but I just wanted to give a quick plug for that. Back to you, Jeff.
Phragmites. Chris and I started talking about Phragmites in 2013, and the reason I mention it to you guys is because every one of your subdivisions have retention and detention ponds. And over the last couple of years, if you remember the 8.5 inches of rain that fell in a couple hours in Orion, we found where all the weak links as far as maintenance go on. If you have a retention or detention pond with Phragmites, call my office. We can get there's no cost estimate, put you directly in touch. PLM is the contractor that we have been using and utilizing, and that can assist you in your maintenance needs. We have found that the invasives are pretty much one of the #1 cause, that and garbage, of problems with the proper drainage of your stormwater. One more thing, I just want to say this, I say it every time. There is no such thing as a flushable wipe. Cross connection. This has everything to do with maintaining a safe drinking water supply. There are a number of potential cross connections in everybody's home and business. The ones that we're focusing on right here are your irrigation systems. Every irrigation system connected to the municipal water system should have a backflow. The state mandates that every 3 years you have a backflow, we have a backflow test performed. If you can go on our website, there's a list of ASSE certified contractors. We don't recommend one or the other. There's 100 of them. Like I said, they're every 3 years. Just submit the forms by the end of August. If you don't have a sprinkler system, there's a spot to check not applicable and send that back in as well. It depends on where you live in the township. So we did 362, and then we do 360 is the biggest, and correct. West Nile virus, when he came in, there's a bunch of 2 kinds of bug lotion, and there are containers of little pucks. The pucks are for your standing water. If you have any standing water in your yard or your retention ponds, It's all free. We participate with the county. We get thousands of dollars in free West Nile virus protection products each year. We've been doing that since about 2013 as well. If we run out there, we've got plenty more. Stop by the office, and they're on the counters. I think Aaron has stuff set up everywhere. It's for your protection. I don't know that we've had any West Nile virus issues in the township, which is a good thing, but I know it does exist in the county.
And it's a grant, and we get them, we participate and throw them in your retention pond, any place mosquitoes can form, and it's for your protection, but also it helps them enjoy your backyard a lot more as well, and your neighborhood common areas, and it's free.
Please ask me anything, except about grocery stores.
I have a quick comment. I've got the mic, Jeff Ross. So I just have a quick comment about the water tower, because that helps keep our rates down as well, too. So it's over on Silverbell, maybe if you make a quick.
Well, we have the water tower, which is about 200 million gallons of storage capability. We attempt to fill that every night. It offsets, it's all part of this mathematical equation, but water purchase at night is actually cheaper than during peak demand hours. So hence the watering restrictions, and I think in 2010 is when it was built. Like I say, it's just another way that we try and keep the cost of water and sewer as low as we possibly can. You know, we have an 8-man crew. Bill Basco is our water and sewer superintendent. That's all we do is water and sewer with those guys. We sit on all the boards. We try to negotiate every time we can. The good news is our system is relatively young. I mean, compared to a Royal Oak or Madison Heights or Warren, I mean, our pipes underground are relatively young, which is a good thing. By jetting, by cameraing, several years ago we bought a camera truck. It's not that interesting of videos, but you'd be surprised what you see down in the pipe system. We try and.
Any other questions on?
Last question, Jeff. I give you a plug. Your guys, anytime we call them, they come right out, and they've done great work for all of our residents. Fast question, water quality. The only thing I spotted in here was a lead issue. Is that because of the village where the older pipes are, or what?
There is no lead issue in the township.
Okay, so it appeared to be a figure in here.
Well, there might show something, but it's way, way below the threshold.
Within, I think about that commercial, acceptable lead limits. You guys have all seen it there. It's not what I'm saying, but yeah.
Yeah, just a quick one, too. When are they looking at those proposed rate increases to take effect?
July 1st, to be on your
July
August
1st?
bills. By July 1st, it'll be on your August bill.
What's the rationale for the increase, the 6.8% increase on the sewer when our services haven't been increased, but we're getting huge rate increases?
Well, there's a litany of things pertaining to the sewer infrastructure of Oakland County. We're a part of all that. It's just that maintenance, it's the treatment cost, it's, you know, it's just the cost of sewage. Our sewer goes in two different directions, one through Pontiac and one kind of over toward Rochester Hills. It kind of actually follows the Paint Creek Trail direction through a series of lift station after lift station until it gets to a treatment and ends up back in the Great Lakes. All those systems are aged and require huge maintenance costs, and every municipality is bearing the brunt of that. The good news for us is we don't share a dual system with our stormwater and our sanitary. So those municipalities, Royal Oak, Berkeley, South Oakland, they're bearing huge costs because they've got to split pipes. So it's just, it's, for lack of a better phrase, it's a trickle-down process here for maintenance costs.
To directly answer your question, I mean, Jeff did a great job, but we change nothing in the community and our rates go up. It's not like we're adding bells and whistles or have issues. It's all downstream of us. You know that big sinkhole that happened over on the east side a couple years ago? you all got a rate increase for part of that, because we were part of the $100 million fix. It's part of our residents.
What took place that day in Fraser, directly it affects us, every one of us that use the system. Sir?
Just in regards to the new requirement for all homeowners associations to submit our water meters every winter, in regards to that, what's the reasoning behind that specifically? And then the other question I have also is the issue we ran into this year, this is, I know, the first real year in regards to it, is when they're removing it, we're not able to winterize the systems 100%. So we have a vacuum seal that needs to be replaced tomorrow. That's going to cost our association about $800. And we have another one that the pipe burst because water lingered in it because we're not able to winterize the system 100%.
So listen, I agree with that, everything you just said there. So as far as scheduling for the meter removal, contact us. I don't care when it is. I mean, we can work around your schedule, and we won't pull that meter until you do have your system winterized. Now, let's make sure that it's not the end of November when we're doing that. The reason that we take the meters is because several HOAs have multiple meters. They're numbered. It directly correlates to the billing amount. Some of those get switched by Acme Sprinkler Company if they do it. We maintain the control over where we pulled it from and where it goes back. We have a dedicated area that's heated. We look at those. We make sure that they're properly synced. It's just so that we have had several instances of HOAs firing their sprinkler company and us having to go retrieve meters, or there's a long story for it. So it's just simplification for our life. But that being said, be happy to schedule it whenever.
Jeff, just a quick question or comment. Years ago, when we first started doing these forums, you had made a statement saying that you were hoping that we could lift these watering restrictions because something was going to happen. And what was that, and why didn't it happen?
I don't remember what could have happened. At any rate, we are just so tight now as far as our negotiations for usage and whatnot. I think that everything has just escalated so fast as far as costs that we're walking a fine line here. Even with the 2.5 million gallons of storage, it all comes down to peak demand usage, low demand usage. I mean, I'll say it, the chances of paying less for water and sewer over the next coming years are slim. And yeah, so every month I have between $600,000 and $700,000 water and sewer bill that we pay our bill every month for the usage that we provide. When we were quarterly, it never caught up. I mean, we were always kind of behind. So on the same lines as your DTE bill and your Ford Motor Credit bill and every other bill, it's a monthly deal.
This goes back to the GFL contract. Are they still, we're in the initial 5-year contract. They said that if a residence was vacant or not using the garbage for a month, they could get a rebate. Do you know if that's still in effect? Not a rebate, I'm sorry, a discount. I think it was $50 if you were gone for 30 days or more.
That's a snowbird discount. A snowbird, you can do it once a year for 90 days. It's on the website, the information. You have to tell them ahead of time when you want to turn your service off. No one can opt out, but if you're going to be gone, you can get a reduced rate. Yes, but you have to, the information's on our website. Sorry to jump in, Jeff.
I'll check that, thanks.
Yeah, yep.
This is just for my clarification. 3 weeks ago, I asked the people at the water department for the new rates July 1st. What you just talked about are different than what they gave me 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and literally, we got those rates within, well, we took it off the first board meeting in June because we didn't have the final on the paper number.
You can call the county and ask them that question. We're dealing with the same
I would
frustration.
love it if you call WRC. Please call WRC as often as you do RCOC.
That's the Water Resource Commission for Oakland County. That's what WRC is.
Sir.
I know there was a significant improvement in the water pressure when you guys put the water tower in. Obviously, the township's grown quite a bit. It sounds like you're maybe not filling that water tower up every night at this point. Does it make sense at some point that you're going to need another one?
Our water model does not suggest that at this time. Even with the GM plant and the new multi-subs and whatnot, the water model, we still have plenty of capacity. Hey, thanks. I'm here all week.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, now we move on to Building Department, and probably what a lot of you are interested in is ordinance enforcement. One quick note just for Jeff as Dave's coming up is, some of you found out the hard way, the township, Jeff's department, does not maintain the drainage systems, storm drainage systems in your neighborhoods. That's the road commission, and a lot of you have found this out the hard way. The retention and detention ponds are usually the homeowners association's responsibility, and it's expensive. So if this is the first time you're hearing that, or you're a newer sub, you should look into that. We can give you some guidance. Our engineers will help you. That's why Jeff talked about Phragmites and the importance of keeping them clear. I know our old sub had to spend a big chunk of change, so LOCS had to spend a big chunk of money that they weren't expecting, and they get mad at us, but it's not our system.
And on that note, if you guys do experience those issues, you can still feel free to call us up, because we will bombard RCOC's online tool as well, and make those calls saying, hey, we're getting reports of this. So any bit of squeak in that wheel, we're happy to partake in.
All right, Dave Goodlow, our building official. Thank you, Dave.
Hello, everyone. David Goodlow, building official. I left my card on the table in the vestibule if you want to grab it on your way out, if you need anything from me. We also have Ask the Building Official tab on our website. You could send an email anonymously, or give us some information about any issues you have, or just ask any simple questions. I see a lot of familiar faces, actually, that I have dealt with in the past through some tough issues, Keatington being one. Debbie, good to see you. So first thing I'm going to talk about is drainage. It's been the #1 issue for us this year. Obviously, Orion Oaks probably knows all about the drainage issues that we've been having. One thing that HOAs have to realize is that the drainage easements are very important. Typically in the old subs, we get berms built in them, and that backs up and goes on to a neighbor and starts a new drainage course. It's very important that HOAs hold their members accountable for those drainage easements, knows where they are, so they can't build up berms or plant trees. Make sure that you're aware of that, where those are located, who's doing work in them, and hold them accountable. Don't let them do it. Otherwise, you're going to have one good neighbor with nice landscape, and the other one's going to be flooded out and won't be able to even use your yard. We've seen it a lot, especially with some of the weather changes we had. Last year we had 8 inches of rain in several hours over across the 24 there, and it was just a nightmare. Imagine if power went out with that. I wanted to talk to the insurances. Nobody had insurance for that, so maybe think about carrying a rider on your insurance if you're in a high area with some water issues. Jeff spoke about the Phragmites in your retention and detention ponds. It's very important to make sure they're clean and clear. It causes backups, obviously, issues with algae, bugs, long grass, ticks. It really causes an issue if you do not maintain those, and those are the HOA responsibilities. Catch basins in the back edge of the property, we have to make sure those are clear. It is usually the responsibility of the HOA, not the homeowner. A lot of times, especially in the newer subs or even in some of the older ones, you get depressions around your catch basins because there's an overdig area for where they put the infrastructure in for that catch basin. That depresses, and then all of a sudden it wears out the sides of your catch basin, and debris starts getting in there, and then it causes backups. We've seen it on some of the older subs during that rain where they were backed up. Some of the ones in the road, on private roads, actually had concrete in them. So it's not a bad idea to have those checked, often, just to make sure that we're not having issues with that, because it can can cause a backup, you know. These aren't designed for 8 inches of rain. That was a 10,000-year event. They're designed for a 100-year flood. They're not maintained, you know, with some of the weather that we've been having and some of the storms. You know, we don't want them backing up and then backing up into your homes. Well, typically, it depends on where the storm drain is located. If they're located in the right-of-way on a county road, then, you know, you have them. But if they're in a private road, they're Cedar Key? Well, you can send me an email, I could take a look at it, tell you whose responsibility it is. We've had issues where one gentleman put a berm in their backyard, washed out a whole driveway of another resident, and the HOA is gonna have to probably be held responsible for that in the long run. So it's definitely good to educate yourself on those patterns in your communities. It's also, you know, with a lot of these subs, you know, people are doing patios and landscaping and decks, you know, where do you put if we dig a hole, where do we put the dirt? A lot of people just throw it in the backyard and say, oh, it's gonna be fine. Well, these, you know, most of these subdivisions are engineered to show where to front of the water place. If you take the dirt from a 16-inch hole for a big deck, and you have 5 of them, you know, you spread that over the backyard, you're talking 2 inches raised and a grade level over the entire backyard. I've seen it a couple times. So, you know, pay attention to that when people do have projects. For the architectural communities, keep an eye on, you know, if you see somebody doing work without a permit, please give us a call. You know, it's for the safety of the community and the residents and themselves. We do double the permit fee for work done that has not obtained a permit. We do ask for your architectural approvals when we do get a permit submittal. So it's something that we try to actively engage in with the HOA so we know some of the issues that you have. Or, you know, some people try to build things without your approval, obviously, especially in the older subs, or, you know, there's not knowing, so education is the key. We appreciate active homeowner association in the building department. You really help us get with our jobs, with, you know, maintaining some of the order in your communities. We cannot enforce some of the things that you can because they're, you know, within your master deed. We go by our ordinances. So, you know, we appreciate having active HOAs, and I appreciate you all being here today. So, like I said, a lot of those easements, hold those members accountable. We do ask for, like I said, we ask for that copy of HOA approval. So if you don't have a letter, please come up with a form. That way, you know, we have it, so we know that you looked at their project. Remember, if they change something, to inform you. We ask for, if they change something on our plan, we're gonna ask for a revision, but we're not gonna ask for another HOA approval letter. So if we get a revision, you know, we'll just look at it for building code issues, but I think your architectural committees need to be active on how they're doing it, if you have one. If you don't, you probably should, you know, think about starting one up to maintain the looks of your communities.
And we don't check your bylaws. So somebody might try to pull a shed permit. We don't have every subdivision's bylaws on file. Some of your subs don't allow sheds. We've issued permits in the past, and people build a shed, and then they get upset because their HOA makes them take it down. So it's important that we have this communication. We try to do the best we can, but again, we don't have 75 bylaws on file that we can review every time. So that's something that will be helpful for that the communication that Dave's referencing.
Yeah, and absolutely, and you know, if you aren't on the list, in Mr. Barnett's list in the supervisor office or on that map, please make sure you get on it, because that's how you get on our radar, and we know you're an active HOA. We're definitely gonna be, you know, hey, where's your paperwork from that HOA? You know, some communities just don't have them in their subdivisions where they have an active HOA. It's usually on the shorter roads, but if they don't, they usually just send it in, and we look at it for building code issues and move forward. So it's definitely a good thing to have. We also handle code enforcement, which consists of weed violations, we get, 8 inches tall is the weed height rate currently. The reason we actually had it at 12, we dropped it to 8 2 years ago because we give 10 days to comply per our ordinance. By the time we'd get out, and if 10 days went by the time we get out there, it'd be 15 inches. And if we had to send somebody to cut it, it was a real hassle cutting 15 inches of grass. So we dropped that to 8. So by the time it gets out there, it's only 12. So we do, enforce that. We are pretty, how would you say, Chris, generated by complaints? We don't actively seek to find people or become a hassle to people.
We have 2 ordinance enforcement officers that cover 36 square miles. We're not in every sub every day with rulers. So a lot of the stuff comes out because you guys reach out. Hopefully from this meeting, you get Dave's card, Dave, you call, and we also aren't necessarily in the business, we're not in the business of writing a bunch of fines. We're looking for compliance. We don't like to take people to court. So we try to get voluntary compliance.
And we do a great job at getting voluntary compliance. We do not like to fine the community. We do not like to take anybody to court. We try to get it, good and resolved. A lot of times, though, we do have issues where it's a civil matter. If you're talking about a fence with a neighbor and a neighbor, we cannot get involved in that. That's a civil matter between those 2 neighbors. If there's property line disputes, it's not anything we can do. We can point you in the right direction, say, fill out a FOIA request to get your plot plan so you can look to try to find your stakes on the corners of your lot. FOIA is a Freedom of Information request. It's through the clerk's office. We get a lot of requests for I want to see my plans from, when my house was built. So we always refer them to them. It takes a week, they get their plans, and then they can move forward. A plot plan? It depends on what you're going to use it for. Now, I always point people to, if you really want an accurate one, super accurate try to find those stakes, you can FOIA it and get the original stamped and sealed one by a civil engineer. If you're looking for something, just kind of get a gauge on your property, you can go on Property Gateway, which is a great website for Oakland County. It has a picture. You can Windows Shift S, take a screenshot, and you have a copy of that. We even accept that for decks as long as you have the numbers written on, or structures, as long as the numbers are written on. Yeah, I had a fee, right? No, it's not a fee? Okay, good. So yeah, the FOIA is go, Donnie. Okay.
Just ask a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. What was
Donnie will get you the mic. I think this gentleman behind you is next.
Question has come up in our subdivision. It's kind of new. It has to do with solar panel installation. And there's nothing specific in our deed restrictions or bylaws, but we do require that all changes and so on have to go through architectural committee approvals, things like that. And I'm just wondering, the township's opinion, and with all these different HOAs here, how are you looking at approval of solar panel installations?
Building code issues only. If it's on it depends if you have a ground mount system or a roof mount system. A roof mount system, we're just making sure that there's proper attachment. The roof can carry the load, and that's all we look at with the roofs. Ground mount system. You don't care where, as long as it's structurally okay. Yeah. And I know that's something that is coming up with HOAs, whether they want to allow them on, the front of the home, But the problem is we're in Michigan, so if you don't have a south-facing home, or, it's not really conducive to put it on the north side of the home.
So I guess the first question is, does any other HOA here have any policies on that yet?
And that's kind of why we created, that's a great question, I know not everybody's on Facebook, but probably most people are. The top one, Facebook groups or an HOA, you have to be accepted into the group. It is not the place to post pictures of your kids or your Mary Kay that you're trying to sell. It's a place to share ideas like this. You know, that's kind of why we created it. And for a while there, it was somewhat active. It's been pretty dormant, but maybe some of you will see the value in that to share these ideas, because that's something that we as a board have even kind of started to talk about for zoning purposes, you know.
I'll just say one thing is, the crowd that's here, I don't want to offend anybody, but they're typically a little bit older, and when we mention solar panels, it's, oh, it's Michigan, you can't do it. But you talk to some of these younger people, they're extremely enthusiastic about it, and they're charging a Tesla at night with the 3 battery packs, and they're trying to get as many solar panels on top. They look at it as,
You know, there might be a day and age where you won't be able to ban that type of renewable energy within a HOA. You know, we have a ground mount, I actually have a ground mount 36, and it's structural. So that would be considered a structure, and it'd have to be held to setbacks by planning and zoning.
Plus Dave lives in the sticks, though.
So, you know, so if you do have a ground mount, you know, that would be a structure, but, you know, it is something that I think is more and more prevalent, especially if they get better.
Anything else you wanted to cover, Dave, before we go to any more questions? Oh, sorry, Ross, sorry.
You're looking at me this time, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I got you.
It'd be a real easy question, that is, with all the lakes and everything, what's the township's position on boats and trailers being stored in the driveways all summer long? Where do you stand with that?
You know, with all the lakes, you know, you're allowed to have a boat 20 feet off the road on a paved surface. It's almost like a be careful what you wish for if you call on somebody that has one parked in the front, because if we go out, we're gonna hit the whole street, and we're gonna upset a lot of people. So we try to make sure that it's not a safety issue. It doesn't look poor. It's not like a ragged, dirty, rundown, you know, blighted boat, or not trailered. We want, you know, a clean, if we go out there and it's a clean looking boat, parked neatly in the driveway, and it's not an issue for line of sight, I don't think we really want to go down that road. We will if somebody really wants to push the issue for our ordinance. But like I said, if we're going down there to bust one guy for 15 off the front road, we're going to hit the whole street, because we're not going to deal with, oh, he's got it and he doesn't and he does. So there is an ordinance, 20 feet. Yeah, typically 20 feet, and it's hard to meet.
What, was anybody around for the Civil War of Keatington a few years ago? Because I was. And that's exactly what happened. People had tape measures out, and some were 18 feet, 6 inches. And like Dave said, we want to make sure the ambulances and fire trucks can get, and the police cars can get down the roads, and they're not part blocking stuff. But we have 2 people that cover 36 square miles for all ordinance, plus they also do other jobs here. So use judgment, sometimes a friendly letter, really a friendly letter from the HOA president saying, you know, you have your boat parked at the edge of the road, it's got to be 20 feet. That a lot of times corrects the issue. So we would start there, because we had that. We had people at this, at the old podium screaming and yelling that we wrote them a violation. We didn't write any tickets, but we wrote warnings, and it was, and then we dealt with a year of neighbors calling on neighbors for every violation they could find, because it was a civil war. And we don't have the capacity to do that, so hopefully that's where we can partner, and you guys can maybe have the friendly letter from the HOA. Helps us a lot.
Absolutely. I can take questions, I'm good. Anything?
And hopefully this is useful. I know it's getting close to 2 hours. We don't want to keep you all night, but there's a lot of information, so we'll try to keep flowing through this. But yes, go ahead.
Regarding a deck, we have someone whose deck is crumbling, visibly railings, not up to code, you know, and they're falling apart. So is there any leverage from the township to get someone to rope it off and demo it if they can't afford to replace it?
Absolutely. You know, if it's a dangerous structure, we can use the property maintenance code. The thing about that is we need a line of sight. We can't go in somebody's backyard, the backyard of the deck you're complaining about.
If the crumbling is visible from the sidewalk?
Yeah, if we could see it from a public way.
Grass is 12 to 15 inches tall.
Yeah.
You're there for the grass.
Exactly. If we could see it from a public way, or one of your residents give us permission to go in the yard, just give us a call or a court enforcer, let them know that, yeah, you can walk on our property to look. This deck is a danger and it's blighted and it's an eyesore, so yeah.
Go on your website and pull out a form for ordinance violations.
Yeah, you can, like I said, you can use ask the building official or give us a call. Nothing-
We do not go there saying your neighbor Heather said, like, we do keep, now, some of them call us and accuse, hey, Heather must have been the one that called. We don't disclose that, but some of them swear they know, but we want to protect you guys as well.
And that sounds like a safety issue, you know, so. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely can help out with that.
I almost hate to ask this, but is there anything in the ordinances about people parking cars on front lawns?
You know, there's nothing. We've actually had discussions about it. You can park your car on, well, we're on recording this. We don't want you to park on your front lawn, but yeah, there's not an issue with it currently. And that's something that maybe HOAs individually would want to address. Okay.
Any other questions for Dave?
Do you have an ordinance for how close a school building can be to homes?
School building?
A school building.
Typically, it would depend on the zoning district.
So I need to wait for the next item?
Yeah, I would definitely ask
Well-
that P and Z question.
No, I mean,
You know, there's
like a
usually a
traditional
setback
school or like a
buffer.
daycare? Yes. Yep. First of all, schools, public schools are in their own world. They don't even have to pull building permits through the township. Yeah, and my understanding is the school district is gonna do heavy landscaping. So to answer that very specific question, it was reviewed, that's in the village. We do their building inspections, they have their own planning commission. Yep, that's the border right there. And public schools literally march to their own beat per the state law, so there's not, I think the best avenue for you is to go to a couple school board meetings and just say, we used to have a nice buffered separation and now we don't. And there has been other feedback on that, and I heard recently that they were still planning on that, so I would talk to the school board. Yep.
Hey, Dave, just a quick one. Is there any ordinance about a vehicle leaking continuous oil or transmission fluid into the street?
I think we could find something on that. I think we could find something on that, you know, if it's causing an issue. You know, with the property maintenance code's pretty broad language, depending on, you know, a lot of it comes down to safety and blight.
So you just need a license plate or house number?
An address would be fine.
Great, thank you.
Is there an ordinance on when they can start working in the township? Or I guess I don't know if it would be the village, because they start at 7 o'clock in the morning or earlier working on the school.
We are 7 to 10 p.m. Yeah, and typically they'll work on Sundays.
Anything else for Dave? We are all available after this meeting. I mean, maybe not specifically tonight, but if you have other questions come up tomorrow, as Dave mentioned, all the board's cards are on that wall. We are reachable, so you don't have to wait till the next homeowners forum if you have questions. We're here every day. We're happy to help. I'll be very brief on this. I don't even know what the slide is because Tammy, as our planning and zoning director, and she was unable to attend tonight. There you go. If you go to our website, departments, planning and zoning, current developments, what's going there? That's a section in our magazine. It says what's going there, I think. It's called something like that. And that tells you what's going on. We really do, until a site plan is submitted to the planning commission, to the township to go to the planning commission, they're not public documents. As soon as they are, You can see anything and everything you want to see. So that development that I referenced on Baldwin, we've met with them a dozen times over the last 2 years, but until they formally submit something, we can't share it with you. But the second we want to be very transparent. The second we're able to, we want to. So some things that are happening on 24, you'll see the site next to Palazzo de Bacci. That's an expansion of KPMF. They make the little decals and stickers and for all the cars, 4x4 and all that good stuff. They're expanding here, and this is really good jobs. The Bald Mountain Road's closed. I'm sure you guys over in Oakland Ridge know that. That's because in the process of building a new power station, they're building a new power substation next to Ajax there. They determined that, remember that little fire we had a couple years ago down by where Menards is now? That you could see from, I think, the space station. They have found that it's not, no one's in danger, but they closed the road because in the process of starting this power substation reconstruction, they want to make sure that that same high-pressure gas main that runs under the road there has not been compromised for the same reason that it was compromised on Brown Road, which is a wetland area. It made the pipe sag, and after a while it broke, and we had an issue. Luckily, nobody was hurt. And then we have all kinds of retail shops and things coming, and that's the planning update. Planning Commission, Kim is our planning commissioner and also our board member, so if you have specific questions about projects. But, the one thing I do like to tell people is a lot of times when we see you is when something's being built near your communities and you're not happy with it. And I get that because that's how I told you originally, that's how I got involved. Personal property rights are still a thing here in our township and in our country. And so we still will have some development. The good news is the reason that people choose Orion is because we have 30+% of our land mass are lakes, which I don't think those are going to change anytime soon, and parks. In the township, in the 10 years I've been here, we've added a couple hundred of acres of parks plus. We're not selling parks. Some communities are actually selling property developers to be developed. We're doing the opposite. We bought Camp Agawam. We got these 76 acres here that the state was looking at selling. We built some pocket parks. So that's the good news, but you will see some more development. We will never be Sterling Heights. We're not going to be Warren. We're not going to be Macomb Township. We have lots of natural amenities we will protect, but you will still see a few new neighborhoods here and there and some more developments. And you can come to this podium and yell at the board and tell them, we don't want any more of these things. And you'll probably hear us say, if it's zoned properly, they're going to get it. So, all right, any questions on planning and stuff? We'll keep moving to the treasurer. Donnie. Oh, one last thing, well, she's coming up. We checked. We put a high effort on all the stuff Aaron's going to tell you about. Real data, our property values are trending. When I moved to Orion, no disrespect to everyone that's been born and raised here, I moved here because I couldn't afford to buy a house in Rochester, because that's where I wanted to live, because that's where I wanted my kids to go to school. But Orion was a good second choice, because we had great schools and it was more affordable. This is in 1997. Now, over the last 5 years, our property values have trended at 10 to 12% higher than all our surrounding communities. I think it has a lot to do with a lot of things you've heard. Our safety, all the parks and amenities. So now people, if you look at the real estate, you'll see our real estate surpassing all these communities that a few years ago were kind of more sought after. So now, Donnie's going to tell you how we're going to pay for it all. I don't know what she's going to say.
Bad news, oh no. Tax bills are coming in. So I'm Donnie Steele, I'm the treasurer, and I am too a full-time elected official. And I, like Chris, got involved because I wanted safety pass from my subdivision. I live in St. Andrews, and from St. Andrews to Paint Creek Elementary, I wanted the kids to be able to ride their bikes to school. So I said, I'm gonna get involved, so here I am. So I live in St. Andrews, and part of being a public official, you need to live in the township because then you have a vested interest on what is voted on to make sure that you are happy with it within your own community as well, too. So with that, I wanted to say, I was on the safety path with Heather, is what I wanted to say, because Heather was on that path committee, and Jerry for a very long time, and Jerry still is, so I appreciate the involvement. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight, because I know it's a long evening, but I think it's really useful. I wanted to say, we just finished a SAD, and, well, it's not a SAD, we have a private road in St. Andrews, and we couldn't do a SAD because it is a private road, so we had to self-fund it, and we are able to self-fund it through our HOA. And so with our dues, we're able to pay back the money that we borrowed to be able to fix that road. So it's literally being finished this week, and it's beautiful. So it was well worth the investment, because I think, like what Chris says, the values rise of the improvements, and I believe our subdivision's values will improve just because of the road being fixed. So with that, I wanted to go and just show you real quickly a sample bill. The bills will be coming out next week. You'll get it, if you have your taxes paid with your escrows, you'll still get a copy of a bill, so you can look at it and see where your money is going to. And if you see this taxable value at the top, it's a multiplying calculation. So you take your taxable value by the percentages for each one of those: school debt, the operating, Oakland Community College, OCC, in Oakland County, and you multiply the two and you divide it by 1,000, and that's where you get that figure. So I just show that because I think a lot of people don't pay attention when you vote on these millages, what it costs. And with the Headley Amendment, based on the overall value of the whole entire community, those millages actually roll down, and that's why there are these odd numbers. So, like, for instance, the sinking fund, that used to be 2 mills, and now it's 1.88620. And the more values that we have in the township, those numbers roll down, and that way we don't spend like crazy people, and we are able to maintain the services at a reasonable value, or a reasonable level. So that, and then the proposal A, so when you buy, your value only goes up on the rate of inflation unless you sell the house, and then it uncaps, and then you get charged the higher value. So you have the taxable value, which that gets locked in with proposal A, and then you have the assessed value, and so when you sell, it goes to the assessed value. It's confusing, but I try to just kind of break it down on the website, on the treasurer's website. You can see where your dollars go to and their percentage. So the numbers on this pie chart are their percentage of your total tax bill. So you can see the winter portion of the bill is our police, safety path, library operating, North Oakland transportation, the parks, and the operating for Orion Township. You can see at the very tippy top is one of the smallest pieces of the pie. And that's what we charge to run the township, to run and pay, those guys have their separate millage, but to run the whole township is the operating millage. And you can see the voted millages of the police and the fire, which is really in line of what usually is spent in your property values, is public safety. So we're in line, actually probably lower than other communities, like Chris said, with the frugal index. So that's on our website, and this is just broken down that way as well, too. And if you guys don't know, we do sell park passes at the treasurer's office and dog tags, and if you do your permits, you pay for them at the treasurer's office as well. So, any questions? Yeah, the boring part of this presentation.
Thank you, Donnie. And we're down to our last presenter, Parks and Rec. Save the best for last. Aaron Watley.
So now I know why they put me last, because they're talking about taxes and boats in the yard, permits, tickets. So I'll give you some fun stuff, hopefully. So we'll go through a few small projects here. This one's out at Civic Center Park, and it'll be kind of near the existing playground out there. It'll be an adult fitness course, almost like a ninja course. So while your kids are out playing, you can go run a quick minute on the circuit over here. We have a lot, and I know you want to get out of here, so I'll go quick. But we have some supply issues with our fencing, but like everybody else, but we're optimistic it'll be done 4 to 6 weeks, restoration and everything, so, yep. And this is going, new tennis and pickleball courts will be going at Friendship Park, the north end. So construction's already started. We just actually paved the approach off of Baldwin Road, so you won't have to go through the bumpy rivets anymore. We'll have parking out there. It'll be 2 pickleball and 1 tennis. Future expansion would be an additional 2 pickleball and 1 tennis out there. So there is bathrooms out there existing. We're not exactly sure how the structure is going to work. We'll see how the demand is, but it will be somewhere in the line of where there'll be open play. You can just pop out, use the court at your leisure, reservation times, and then league play as well. So be a variety of things. 2023, we're going to be looking, right now we're doing the engineering and some cost analysis on renovating Peterson Lodge and doing a beach expansion out at Camp Agawam. So, has anybody been to Camp Agawam? Oh, quite a few of you. How about the beach? Yeah, okay.
It's one of the
I wanna
best
keep it
kept
quiet,
secrets. Yeah, I mean, and you own it. It's your township park, and it's free, and it's incredible. And we don't have to close it very often for E. coli like some other local beaches.
So we try to keep the geese off of that. That's the biggest issue with E. coli. While we're on Camp Agawam, we were approved last year for our campground license through Eagle. Very long, extensive process to be certified. Just make sure that the health department and the state verify that our sites are safe, everything's up to code and compliance. We just applied for a modification and will be, the board actually approved, but it was initiative through our Parks and Path Committee, citizens like you that volunteer, and they recommended on putting a biking campsite at Camp Agawam. Since we're right on the Iron Bell Trail, now bikers from, biking up through Detroit can take a stroll up here, 43 miles, and they're guaranteed they will have a place to stay overnight and then to go on. So, nice little addition out there. We were just approved that a few weeks ago. Wildwood Amphitheater, we have a partnership with Orion Events. So they will be having concerts out there pretty much every single week through the end of the summer, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We also offer our free concert series on Tuesday nights, 7 o'clock. You can head out there about an hour and a half, free music, enjoy the hill. Yeah, you can see the lineup. It's pretty substantial. Yep, how can I help you? Yes, they are horrible. With that being said, we always do spray. Our contractor is kind of flaky this year, but it's really surrounding some wetlands, so I highly recommend having your 100% DEET out there. No, I'm just kidding. So, maybe not that. Any other questions? Feel free to raise your hand, ask questions as we go. Yep. Oh, yeah. Yep. So, yes, I will talk about that. Yeah. Yes, sir. No, we'll go there. Most of the campsites, so 9 out of 10 of the campsites are primitive, meaning you have a picnic table, a fire ring, and that's it. We do have one campsite that does have electric and a water hookup. With that being said, we do not allow RVs. There's a whole new permitting. We need to have a waste station, a ton of different stuff, but we do allow pop-ups out there at all the campsites. Did that answer your question, or? Okay. Sorry, I know you need to have the mic.
No, you don't.
Okay, a few other things. Let's see.
I'm gonna open that one picture, Aaron. You wanna see that thing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Appreciate it. Chance, okay. So really with the passage of the Parks and Rec millage, we're very appreciative of that. Chris will show up here, but we've really stayed true to our Parks and Rec master plan. Every 5 years, we ask the community, we do an evaluation of the whole community, recreation, green space, and see what the community needs for the next 5 years. And that includes capital outlay projects. It makes our job very, very easy if the funding is there, because we just go through and we just keep checking it off. We've done really, really well with millage dollars and also supplemented with ARPA dollars, so federal dollars over the past 2 years. And the township board has been very, gracious to support a lot of the projects and really push that funding back to community. So, I won't go through the whole thing, but, you can just, take a look at it here. It just kind of goes through some, brief things that we take care of. We have our developed parks. With that being said, we're not just parks and recreation. We're parks, recreation, safety paths, trails, facilities, and now, unfortunately, Baldwin Road corridor. So, we are working through that issue. We'll get it under control here. So this is just a snapshot of the 2022. We kind of produce these every single year. But towards the end of our millage campaign, we'll show you a one-page document of what the community said they wanted, and then what has been completed. And we are probably about 85% complete each year since funding has allowed. So, we have ball field lights going out at Friendship Park right now. Those are almost done. Additional ball field dugouts, EV charging stations, mountain biking adventure trail. We're kind of repurposing, reutilizing the back portion of Friendship Park right now, or this fall. And so there will be some nice trails back there, and there will be some nice mountain biking trails. So multi-use trails would be nice. I don't know, there's a lot.
This is on our website.
Does anybody have any questions? I have not heard otherwise, so I know they have.
Yeah, and no, it's not, we're not gonna lose it. They really wanna focus their resources where the people are. So they, if you remember in 2020, there was something you voted on, whether you remember or not, changed the formula to how the state was buying a lot of property places where people don't live. So instead of buying another 100,000 acres in the UP that some of us might never set foot on, there was a big push to change the formula so they could maintain the stuff they have where people live, and that was successful. And, if you go through Ball Mountain, you'll see they were doing things like this Water Warrior Island Partnership. All these different state parks are doing these different things just to try to find revenue for survival. Because if you look at the pavilions, the roofs should have been replaced 10 years ago. So the good news is hopefully we're seeing a shift, and we'll see, and that makes a lot of sense to have the resources and parks where closer to the people. So I think you'll see more investment into Ball Mountain, not the opposite. So, yeah, not just Ball Mountain, but with the local parks.
One thing also we're looking at too, switch kind of hats and go to the safety path. We're working on some repairs and boardwalk replacements. But one of the projects we're looking at, probably not this year, but next year, so we'll reach out to the HOA. We're gonna be bringing programs, hopefully, to your community or to your area. So what we'd really like to offer is, say Keatington has, we'll break it up into a few areas, but we want to bring a biking safety program right to you. Kind of utilize a cul-de-sac over there, teach kids how to bike safely. They don't need to, just, we'll bring it local right to you. So if the community's interested in that, then we'll have a program on that next year. And,
All right. So that brings us to kind of general, is there, kind of buying 11 and 12 together. If there's any questions that you didn't get to ask or you want to ask of anyone, or ideas or things that are pressing in your community that you'd like us to do some work on or maybe bring back to another meeting. So now, anybody have any questions or any comments or any thoughts on future meetings? Anybody?
Where we live. We're at Keatington, Cedars
where you
1,
live.
2, and you know that. But is there, bringing the parks and everything toward, but is there any type of, since we don't have sidewalks and we have a lot of vehicles, safety path for walking, is there anything, the road commission is nowhere. Is there anything that you have suggest that we can do?
Yeah, so you all pay a $0.25 which is rolled down to like 0.23 now, right? Which is, again, doing the simple math, if your house is worth $200,000, it's $23 a year. If it's worth $400,000, you're paying $46 a year. We're trying to build out that safety path network, and on our website, you can see the planned projects, but we're not really touching neighborhoods still. We're really building up. So the only real option is, if there's interest in the community, and this might be a community survey question we ask, to raise that safety path millage so we could generate more monies. But the only real option is to do an SAD. Because the challenge is gonna be, even if you raise the millage to $1 for safety path, and now what's $1 generate? 800,000? $1 is. No, it's like $1 million. Okay, so $1 is about $1 million. How much, I wish I had an engineer here. Do you know in the safety path meetings how much a mile of safety path costs? It's crazy. By the time you get easements, so it's probably not $1 million. It's maybe just under, because let's say it's $500,000. And we're low estimating. So you could do 2 miles of path a year if we raise the millage to $1 which is 4 times what it is now. Where do you put those 2 miles? So how do we try to do Cedar Key? Maybe that would be higher than some other subs because it is a cut through, but it's just a challenge. It really is. When you start breaking down the numbers like that, that's why everybody talks about the Independence Road millage, but there's people in Independence that are ticked. They're spending $3,000 over 5 years, and they're not getting a road within 5 miles of their house. Yeah.
One side of the road?
That's the road commission to talk to, because it's their road. We have to talk to them about no parking and things. It really is the most challenging issue, because we get all the complaints and we have no control. Because all the things you're talking about are all road right-of-way stuff. We gotta need,
We did get the safety path through Roundtree, but it was through Safe Routes to School, and we got a grant for that, and we were able to go through a subdivision to be able to connect the school system. And I thought we put Cedar Key on the wish list.
Well, you had to get to school, you had to get to a school.
No, I'm just saying in the future, if that was because that was a cut through, but it was, we're still working on, we just finished M24 getting a safety path, and Indianwood has been my, because they've been asking for a safety path on Indianwood for 20 years. I hear what you're saying.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
I just don't know where we
it's
pull the
terrible,
money.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, in Oakland Ridge, we studied it like for a year in my old sub. There's 53 lots. There's not, but we looked at trying to put a sidewalk, and then it's like, you gotta go through people's yards. And then what side you put it on, you run into the one neighbor that says over my dead body, and it's just a real, I agree with you. If you could do it the right, the way these new communities are being built out west, they build them all like with sidewalks from the beginning, but we have the challenge. The benefit is we have 42 lakes. The downside is we have 42 lakes. There's no straight lines here. And every path that we're trying to build, we have boardwalks that are millions of dollars. I mean, if you haven't been on the path down Clarkson Road that goes over the Paint Creek, it's remarkable. And we got a grant. We got $3 million in grants for it. But it's hard to get grants for subdivisions. It's easy to get, like we connected 2 regional trails, Paint Creek and Pollyant, so we got money. Russ?
Chris, I've been coming to these meetings, I think just about every one you've had, and you'll be commended for it. But this is the same conversation that comes up. So in future meetings, can we ask to have some county representation?
Yeah.
Hold some people responsible for some of these things?
Happy to have them here. They're not gonna lie to you, but they're gonna tell you they don't have the money to do it. And then, yeah, of course. Well, so, the discretion, the people that might have some discretion are the County Board of Commissioners. I mean, they might be able to, we've been trying to get them to weigh in and help with some of these, but it's not the Road Commission. The Road Commission is subject to Act 51, the gas tax and vehicle registration fees, and it's a formula. They know how much money they're getting within a couple $100,000 for the next 10 years. Yeah, that's good. That's good advice. Thank you. Yeah.
Chris, is there anybody here at the township that can help us kind of champion these efforts at the commission? We were told we wanted to get a stop sign at the intersection there of Browning and Eaton Gate. You know where we're talking?
Yeah, I
the beach
do.
there.
Yeah.
And they won't allow us to even get a stop sign there. I guess the point is there hasn't been enough accidents at that corner yet. So until somebody gets, some little kid gets run over and something happens, is there anybody here that, short of attending a meeting, anybody that we can work with, those kind of things?
My office, my team, I mean, all the people you heard, and we ask the same thing, and nobody's here from Heather Lakes, are they? We've been trying to help them with stop signs and maybe speed bumps for 5 years. I've written letters, begged, it's just. Yeah, it's, I mean, it's the Road Commission and the County Commission. Yeah, there's nobody here. We're not fighting against any of these things. We actually are trying to help. Yeah, so, no, I agree. I mean, Mike Gingel's our county commissioner. He's my neighbor too, but he's been our county commissioner, and he's, I think we should invite him to the next meeting like this so he can hear what we're working on. I don't think, I'm not saying that he's working, don't blow him up his emails saying, I can't believe you're not helping us with these issues. There's, but he should hear this stuff, and it's recorded. Well, I'll encourage him to watch it. Hope we didn't say anything too bad. Think about that. Love you, Mike. All right, what else? Any other comments, questions, or things that we should make sure we cover next time? Yeah. Yeah, I agree. You know what? This is the first meeting in a little over 2 years, and I had a hunch it was going to be. I told the team, like, let's try to get all our stuff done in an hour. There's just so much to cover, but I agree with you. We could have it more like a workshop where we, and that, by the way, the room next door, it's part of this building. When you walk out, we'll open the door. You can use that for your homeowners meetings if you want. It's your room. It's our community room. So, I can't go to every single HOA meeting, but I've been to most of yours. If you invite me and I have enough notice, I try to come and at least answer questions, because I know some of your residents don't believe you, and sometimes they need to hear, they probably really don't believe me, but we're happy to try to come, and there's some of yours I come to every year. What else? Anything? I would love to see that top page become more of what, I can't remember your name, I'm sorry. Gary. What Gary is referencing is really kind of why we started that, is a place to ask questions. Like, what do you guys, is anybody doing deed restrictions on boat storage? and then see who responds, some of the stuff you're talking about, that was really kind of what that's designed for. That's not a page to invite every person that lives in your neighborhood to. That's really for people that serve on your HOA boards of across the community to share information. Is anybody here, and I'm gonna read these quickly. If you're from one of these subs, you need to see me afterwards because we show you as inactive or we don't know who you are. Bald Mountain Estates, Baldwin Woods Condos, Baldwin Woods Subdivision, Barrington Cove Condos, Forest Hills, Glens of Indianwood, High Point Ridge Condos, Lonesome Lake, Marina Park, I think that means Marina Point, Morgan Pines, Orion Oaks, Pink Creek Ridge 2, I think somebody's here from there, Silverville Village, Silver Valley, Stratford Condos, Summerfield Condos, and Walden Park. If you're from any of those subs, please come see me after. And if you're not, then we probably know you. Raise your hand if you got an email about this meeting. Oh, well, do it different, it's easier. Raise your hand if you didn't get the email about this meeting. Okay, make sure we have your email on that list. And write down, I think it says on there, your subdivision too. And then what we do through my office is, in the sense it's been so long, Julie in my office has tried to email people, and some people said, I don't live there anymore. Then we said, well, do you know someone who does? And we've even looked at this map, and I'm like, oh, I have friends that live in the sub, and so we've kind of done some of that guerrilla marketing. But the best way for this to work is if we're connected. And I totally agree. Next time we'll try to keep it like to 1 hour max, and then have like an hour or half hour afterwards for people to kind of have some interaction. That's a really good idea. Sorry? Oh, yeah, I mean, it's obviously, our clerk is not here tonight, but some of the precincts change. It's an election year. We expect more than half of our residents are gonna vote by absentee ballot, which those are gonna get mailed out like tomorrow. They're gonna get mailed out whenever you got it. Check your precinct locations. Some people, this is not okay, I'll finish the meeting first. Is there anything else? Yes. Okay, no, I think what I was referencing, yeah. The question was, for those of you watching this later, there was some, I said something about complaints about lakes. What I was referencing was Monday night, the Township Board had a presentation from the Orion Lake Association about their weed treatment plan, which is a special assessment district. And I think I was just trying to say, we try to please everyone, but we don't. And there were people that complained. And I do mean this, and some of you I haven't seen since the last one of these. It's great to see you, and some of you I see all the time. But, every single one of these people, I ask them to be here, but they care about their jobs, right? So they care. Our mission here is to provide the best service in local government, and we want to do that. Like, we pound that into our staff's heads. And they came up with that. It wasn't just my idea. We went through this on this journey together a couple years ago. But we don't want to be like your experience at Secretary of State or your experience with the Road Commission or the County Commission. We want you to feel like we're responsive, and every single one of these people that talked tonight, and even the people that couldn't be here for conflicts, are here to serve you. So start with them if they have an issue, if they're your key point for your issue. But if they don't respond, I'm here all the time. And we'll make sure you get the responses you need. But we really do want you to feel like you're cared about. And especially, we love everyone, but you guys are the ones that step up and give extra. You literally gave 2.5 hours on one of the nicest nights of the summer so you could go share information with all your neighbors. So we appreciate you even more. So if you want to be appreciated, come to the next meeting. Really, hey, thank you so much. Again, it's 9:30. We'll stop for now. And we'll hang out if you have any questions. Take a look at this map. I'm going to roll out on that table. When you walk out, just make sure your sub is on there.